The manhwa begins with him walking into the restaurant and calling out, "Miss Lee Rae-hwa." She responds with a simple yes. The waiter comes over to take his order, and he asks for an iced chocolate. She finds it surprising, considering his tough appearance. When the waiter leaves, he hands her a private military card. He asks what she wants him to do. It seems strange for an ordinary woman to make such a big request to a private military company, but she really needs this man's help. She proposes to Mr. Gwon I-tae, asking him to marry her. She offers a staggering sum of money for his agreement, 2 billion, with half of it upfront. He's taken aback but intrigued. She insists he must protect her for a year, living together as a married couple. He hesitates, laughing nervously. Others in the cafe notice the unusual conversation. Eventually, he agrees, saying, "Let's get married, honey." Lee Rae-hwa, the daughter of Daesan Construction, is often mistaken as Ryu Seo-yeon's daughter due to her glamorous presence and artistic achievements. Ryu Seo-yeon, a celebrated figure in Korea, was pursued by many admirers but eventually chose to marry Lee Jung-hwan, the chairman of Daesan Construction. After their marriage, Ryu Seo-yeon withdrew from the art scene and vanished from public view. A few years later, Ryu Seo-yeon makes a comeback with a totally different style, grabbing attention worldwide. But then tragedy strikes when she unexpectedly takes her own life in her studio. The shocking suicide of the renowned painter and corporate wife shifts the media spotlight to Lee Rae-hwa, her daughter, who is discovered near the body. Despite intense media scrutiny, Lee Rae-hwa remains silent. 10 years later, the incident still haunts her. Guan walks into a cafe and sees Lee waiting for him. He orders an iced chocolate and asks her about her part-time job at the cafe despite having billions in assets. Lee explains it's good for her mental health to have a normal social life. Guan teases her, questioning why she's there early instead of meeting at home. He then asks if she got her father's approval for their marriage, knowing her father opposes it. Lee confirms, and Guan acknowledges it's a significant hurdle. Their conversation turns playful as Lee wonders if Guan thought marrying her would be easy money. Guan jokes back, teasing her informally because she's a year older. They discuss terms of endearment, and Lee settles on being called Rae-hwa. "Rae-hwa, check this out," he says, showing her a picture on his phone. "He's been following me since this morning. Do you recognize him?" Rae-hwa identifies him as her father's subordinate. Guan jokes about his new role as her husband protecting her from her intimidating father-in-law. She admits her father disapproves of something she wants to do, urging Guan to protect her for a year. He nods and heads towards the man. The man approaches with concern, but Guan dismisses his approach as ineffective. Guan warns that if the man continues, he'll involve the police. Guan remarks that typically, his actions would scare people, except those with training like the man. Guan begins to physically confront the man. Rae-hwa watches in shock, having seen street fights before, but recognizing that Guan's actions are far more intense. Despite his aggressive demeanor, Guan's skills are evident as he dominates the fight. Rae-hwa wonders anxiously what she should tell the cafe owner about the altercation. Guan remarks that the customer must have been surprised. The man curses and draws a gun, prompting Guan to react swiftly, pulling out his own gun. Guan shoots the man, who screams, causing a disturbance. Guan casually mentions he attached a silencer to his gun. The man calls Guan crazy, but Guan corrects him playfully. After the incident, Guan mentions feeling thirsty and asks Rae-hwa to get him another glass of iced chocolate. She had heard rumors, but witnessing Guan's actions exceeded all expectations. Rae-hwa wonders to herself how many glasses of iced chocolate he's had already. She asks if they're heading to her house, but Guan says they can't go there to avoid another confrontation. It's been 20 minutes since they left the chaotic cafe scene behind with the injured man. Rae-hwa reassures herself that her father will handle things with the cafe owner later. Guan suggests they head to their new home and buy essentials on the way. Rae-hwa agrees and mentions she'll stop worrying about her part-time job now that it's fallen through. Guan suggests she could work from home instead, but Rae-hwa insists she needs to interact with people. Guan changes the subject, asking if she still smokes, but she denies ever having tried it. Her phone rings, it's Chairman Lee Jung-hwan, her father. Guan suggests she answer on speakerphone. Rae-hwa's dad asks her to come back home, triggering unpleasant memories for her. She urges Gwon to turn around and go back, but he hesitates. Her dad questions why she's continuing despite knowing his feelings. She explains that she now understands her father's concerns about love and being apart from someone you care about. Rae-hwa apologizes for acting independently. Her father presses further, asking what she's up to now. Gwon intervenes, taking the phone and addressing her father respectfully. Her dad asks Gwon who his father is, hinting he'll call him father-in-law. Gwon questions what would satisfy him. Her dad offers money to keep Gwon away from Rae-hwa. Gwon assures him he can financially support Rae-hwa on his own. Her dad challenges him, asking if he knows who he is. Gwon acknowledges his chairman Lee Jung-hwan of Daesan Construction and casually mentions visiting him later. He ends the call and tosses the phone out of the car, revealing it was being tracked by the car behind them sent by her father. Rae-hwa, bewildered, asks Gwon who he really is. He simply responds, "I'm your husband." The term husband feels unexpected, making others assume it's a love marriage. Despite this, Rae-hwa feels confident in her choice. Previous security firms quickly backed down under pressure from Daesan, but in her search, she discovered Gwon I-tae. Known as a reckless and daring mercenary, she expected him to be formidable, but not to this extent. Rae-hwa wonders to herself why Gwon isn't afraid of Daesan. She dismisses the idea that there could be any reason for his audacity. "Why haven't you terminated the contract?" Rae-hwa asks Gwon. He questions if she's curious about that. She explains Daesan could pay him enough to retire from being a mercenary. Gwon prefers the excitement of being with Rae-hwa over working for an aging boss. Rae-hwa questions if he's willing to waste billions just for fun, calling him a lunatic. Gwon insists she doesn't know him well yet. He mentions people who know him don't doubt him but call him crazy with certainty. Rae-hwa playfully calls him a crazy bastard lunatic. Gwon laughs and approaches her, mentioning she's no pushover. Confused, she asks what he means. Gwon asks why she isn't afraid of him despite his intimidating reputation. She answers that there's something scarier than him. He asks why she's rebelling like this, and she reveals she wants to pursue painting. For their safety, Gwon chose his own apartment as their newlywed home. It's not your typical newlywed place, it's a fancy duplex penthouse. Rae-hwa finds it extravagant, considering it's only for a year. She wonders to herself how Gwon, known as a popular mercenary, earns so much money. The apartment feels more suited for a chairman or a wealthy heir, she thinks. He invites her inside, casually removing his shirt. She admires his nice house and asks why it's so luxurious. He jokes about joint ownership, but she insists if he's giving, he should give it all. He explains the house setup, mentioning cameras for security and dividing the floors. He advises her to be cautious and explains the room's purposes. Gwon heads upstairs to wash up, telling her to explore freely. She agrees, planning to use one room as her studio. She explores the house and finds only one bed. On the balcony, she spots a lighter and an ashtray. She wonders if Gwon smokes but doesn't smell anything. Her father's words echo in her mind, about doing everything out of love for her. She used to believe her father loved her deeply and tried to meet his expectations. However, when he visited her studio one day, she realized he only ever loved Ryu Seoyeon. Now, she decides to shed the labels of being Ryu Seoyeon's daughter and Daesan Group's sole heir. From now on, she chooses to be known simply as Gwon I-tae. Gwon's phone rings and he answers. The caller asks what he's up to, and Gwon replies that he's working. The caller informs him that Schmidt is furious and wants him back immediately. Gwon wonders why his boss is so upset. The caller presses, asking if he really went to Korea and if it's because of Ryu Seoyeon's daughter. Gwon clarifies it's Lee Rae-hwa, not Ryu Seoyeon's daughter, and explains about the $2 billion agreement. The caller is incredulous, questioning if he's serious. Gwon confirms they got married for that reason. The caller is shocked but verifies he heard correctly. Gwon calls Choi Jung for help, asking him to assist. Choi Jung reacts with surprise, questioning Gwon's sanity. Gwon explains that things are more complicated than he initially thought. He mentions how Lee Rae-hwa's situation is becoming increasingly strange, with Lee Youngwon's unusual obsession and control over her. Gwon finds it suspicious, especially since Rae-hwa claims she never smoked, which contradicts what Gwon knows. Choi Jung asks why it's significant, but Gwon insists it matters because he personally taught her how to smoke. He asks Gwon if he knew Lee Rae-hwa. Gwon denies it, but the man questions him further. He offers Gwon a Padparad Shah sapphire to come to Korea for work, along with separate compensation. Gwon agrees to form a team promptly. Before ending the call, asks why he's suddenly into security work and marriage when he used to only pursue missions in dangerous zones. Gwon finds it intriguing. The man advises Gwon not to bother Rae-hwa too much. He then comments on Rae-hwa, noting she seems like a refined, wealthy girl. He wonders how challenging it will be for someone like Gwon, whom he calls a lunatic, to manage with her. Gwon laughs off the comment, stating proudly that his honey is just as crazy as he is. Rae-hwa opens the freezer and is surprised to find cigarettes inside. She notices chocolate milk lined up in the fridge. She wonders why there's no cereal in the house. Gwon greets her good morning. Rae-hwa questions why he's not fully dressed, pointing out he's only wearing boxers. Gwon defends himself, saying he is wearing clothes. Rae-hwa insists he put something on top. Gwon jokes that it shouldn't matter since she can't see him anyway, even if she paid him. She tells Gwon she'll pay him to make sure she can't see him. Gwon apologizes, mentioning he's accustomed to being naked at home. He asks what she's looking for in the kitchen. Rae-hwa explains there's only chocolate milk and ice cream in the fridge freezer, and she prefers something else for breakfast. Gwon suggests having ice cream, but she thinks to herself that there isn't any she likes. Realizing there's nothing suitable at home, she decides to buy breakfast outside. Gwon asks about her favorite foods, and she mentions she loves kantori and treats with red beans like BB, Big, Amana, and Posy Tong Tong. Gwon teases her for having an old-fashioned palate. When asked what she doesn't like, she simply answers flowers, jokingly citing the reason as their name. Lee Rae-hwa remembers her name was given by her mom, meaning flowers are coming. Their hometown was always filled with flowers, especially where her mom worked. Both outside and inside, flowers were everywhere, and the scent of flowers always lingered. It was in this flower-filled workspace that she witnessed her mom's suicide. Since then, whenever Rae-hwa sees flowers, memories of that tragic day flood back. Her mom's words echo in her mind, warning her that she would end up like her. Despite her name meaning flowers are coming, Rae-hwa couldn't bring herself to like flowers anymore after that day. She declares her dislike for flowers and suggests they get ready to go out for breakfast and shopping. Rae-hwa mentions needing to buy many things since she arrived suddenly. She also asks Gwon to lend her a top. Gwon initially refuses but jokes that he'll lend it if she calls him honey. Rae-hwa gives him a stern look in response. Gwon playfully tells her not to give him an evil stare and suggests they practice making their marriage look loving by calling each other affectionate names. Chairman Lee Jung-hwan sits in his office with another man, feeling confident about handling the situation as usual. However, he didn't anticipate things escalating to marriage registration, nor encountering someone like Gwon I-tae. The man informs him that Gwon is a renowned figure in the world of private military companies, PMCs, known for completing impossible missions and earning a reputation for being somewhat unpredictable. Despite offers from governments and companies, Gwon seems uninterested in money. The man explains that Gwon's PMC, Desert, isn't easily influenced by financial pressures either. The chairman expresses frustration over not uncovering Gwon's true identity beyond his association with Desert. He suspects there's more to Gwon's background. The man suggests an indirect approach to uncovering more information, emphasizing the urgency of bringing Rae-hwa into the picture. Chairman Lee agrees to proceed with Director Park's plan for an indirect approach. At the restaurant, Rae-hwa asks for the bill, and they settle it after their meal. She notices that Gwon's clothes are a bit oversized on him. Rae-hwa suggests they go shopping for clothes next. Gwon then asks her about her plans with all the attention she's getting. Suddenly, Rae-hwa hears someone calling her name. It's her cousin, Lee Se-on. She explains to Gwon that Se-on is actually her cousin from her father's younger brother, who didn't inherit much compared to her father. Se-on seems friendly but is actually spying on Rae-hwa for her father, Chairman Lee Jung-hwan. The family is trying to sideline Rae-hwa and take over Daesan construction. Gwon jokingly suggests dealing with Seon, but Rae-hwa dismisses the idea, reminding him that killing someone in Korea leads to jail time. She asks Gwon if he's ever been to jail. Rae-hwa's cousin approaches her at the restaurant, expressing concern about not being able to reach her. Rae-hwa, however, questions the depth of their relationship, surprised by the sudden show of worry. Her cousin's demeanor changes when she notices Gwon with Rae-hwa, clearly trying to ascertain their relationship. Rae-hwa quietly notes how her cousin's true intentions were to confirm her suspicions all along. Rae-hwa's cousin, Lee Seon, introduces herself and expresses surprise upon learning about Rae-hwa and Gwon's recent marriage. She comments on how well they seem to suit each other and urges Gwon to take good care of Rae-hwa, mentioning Rae-hwa's seemingly cold exterior hiding a soft heart. Seon then brings up Rae-hwa's past hospitalization for mental health issues, expressing concern that Gwon might not have known about it. She chastises Rae-hwa for not disclosing this important information earlier, questioning her actions. Gwon asks Rae-hwa if there's something wrong with her head, jokingly suggesting they're well matched. He then reveals a troubling past of having killed many people without remorse, leading to his confinement in a mental hospital. He muses about the consequences of harming Rae-hwa's cousin, Lee Seon, but dismisses it as rambling from someone with mental issues. Seon reacts with shock and decides to leave the tense situation. Rae-hwa hesitates for a moment before agreeing to go shopping with Gwon. When he reassures her, calling her normal, it stirs something inside her chest, like a static sensation. She's always felt the pressure to prove her normalcy, but Gwon's simple acknowledgement makes her feel like she's finally living as just another ordinary person. Seon's mom notices her daughter's distress and asks what happened. Seon explains, tearfully recounting her encounter with Gwon I-tae and Rae-hwa. She describes Gwon's intimidating yet attractive presence, adorned with a distinctive snake tattoo, and how he claimed to be Rae-hwa's husband. Her mom interrupts, surprised that Rae-hwa got married without informing them. Seon speculates on Rae-hwa's motives and her mother praises her daughter for taking this step. She decides to inform Chairman Lee immediately and suggests visiting Rae-hwa's uncle together. Seon recalls seeing someone who resembles Gwon before and mentions it to her mom, who suddenly realizes something. She stops Seon from contacting the chairman, revealing that she knows who Rae-hwa's husband really is. Rae-hwa directs the shop assistant to gather several items. Gwon comments on her spending despite receiving 2 billion won, asking about her blocked card. Rae-hwa explains her mother's inheritance, which she keeps outside of her blocked card. Gwon reacts with surprise but acknowledges her plans to lead a normal life after their contract ends, combining part-time work and selling paintings. Nearby, people whisper about Gwon's presence, drawn to his rugged appearance and powerful aura. Rae-hwa, noticing the attention he commands, playfully asks Gwon if he wants to be her model. Back at home, Gwon jokes about being her nude model, and Rae-hwa playfully threatens him with a knife. He appreciates her humor, calling it the best kind of threat he's received. Rae-hwa declares her intention to cook instead of ordering takeout, asking if he eats meat too. They sit down to eat together, and Gwon suddenly remembers something. He hands her a phone equipped with location tracking and insists she use it to call him. Then, he surprises her with a ring, a real diamond wedding band. Rae-hwa marvels at its expense and hesitates, but Gwon insists she keep it close as a constant reminder. Gwon asks Rae-hwa if she doesn't like the ring he gave her, teasing that he could implant a chip in her wrist instead. Rae-hwa reassures him that she will wear the ring and mentions she's familiar with using an electric shock device. Gwon advises her not to use it in public since it's not commonly sold. Once done with business, he brings up the earlier conversation about the nude modeling offer, prompting Rae-hwa to explain. Rae-hwa explains to Gwon that she's not aiming to draw a traditional portrait but rather capture a feeling or essence in her painting. She tells him it will take some time before she starts painting seriously, as she needs to practice and get her hands used to drawing again. She asks for his permission to continue observing him, developing ideas, and making sketches. Curious, Gwon asks why she chose him as her model and what about him moved her. Rae-hwa responds by saying that everything about him inspires her, and she wants to depict him in her art. Gwon jokingly asks if she's trying to seduce him, to which Rae-hwa clarifies that her intentions are purely artistic. Rae-hwa expresses that she hasn't felt such artistic inspiration in a long time and asks Guan to view it positively. She assures him that she will cover the modeling fee. Guan, however, dismisses the fee, considering it part of the service since he received a substantial commission. He casually asks Rae-hwa to have a drink with him sometime, smiling at her. Just then, his phone rings, interrupting their conversation. Guan answers and identifies the caller as his father-in-law, who is suggesting a pre-engagement meeting. Rae-hwa questions Guan about his upcoming plans, and he confirms his intention to attend his father-in-law's pre-engagement meeting with humor and enthusiasm. They end up having dinner together at DS Hotel, a scenario Rae-hwa reflects on later. A week passes, and Guan asks about Rae-hwa's interview for a part-time job at a cafe, which went well. He encourages her newfound activity and jokingly suggests she treat him to something delicious once she starts earning. Before leaving, he informs Rae-hwa about his trip to Incheon Airport, where he's meeting some people to assist him during the upcoming dealings with his father-in-law. He assures her they're trustworthy individuals from his field and takes responsibility for their expenses. Judging from his words, it seems Gwon I-tae is collaborating with at least 2 highly skilled mercenaries. Rae-hwa ponders about the significant expenses this collaboration might incur, considering the 2 billion won she gave him. She reflects on the substantial amount he likely spent on the diamond ring as well. After Gwon leaves, Rae-hwa thinks about cooking a good meat dish for dinner. It's been a while since she sat down in front of her canvas, and she's grateful for the peaceful time afforded by her contract with Guan. She recalls his strange request and wonders about its meaning. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. Rae-hwa assumes it's the art supplies she ordered and calls out to leave them at the door. However, when she opens the door, a man grabs her hand. Reacting quickly, she activates an electric shock device, causing the man to fall unconscious. Guan exclaims, "This is insane, it's driving me crazy," and bursts into laughter. Rae-hwa questions his laughter, reminding him of the electric shock device she used. Guan acknowledges her action with approval, urging the man on the floor to stop feigning unconsciousness. He introduces the man as Choi Jung, the security expert he planned to pick up at the airport. Rae-hwa reflects that their initial meeting didn't go smoothly. Choi Jung praises Rae-hwa's preparedness for self-defense but notes the challenges of using such tools in moments of real danger. Rae-hwa admits she has used the Davy CE a few times before. Guan questions why Rae-hwa keeps using the electric shocker on people. He suggests it could be beneficial for practicing kidnapping scenarios realistically. Choi admits he misjudged Rae-hwa as a spoiled rich girl and tried to test her resilience, leading to the nickname lunatic couple for them. Guan reprimands Choi for his remarks and tells him to apologize properly to Rae-hwa. Choi acknowledges his mistake and promises to make amends. Guan asks if Choi has checked the file he sent earlier. Guan confirms it contains all the paintings by Ryu Se-oyen. Guan expresses surprise at the talent evident in Ryu Se-oyen's paintings, even to those unfamiliar with art. He describes them as bold and provocative, capable of deeply affecting viewers. Guan finds it ironic that such intense artworks came from someone like Ryu Se-oyen, whom he perceived as flashy and lively. He asks about the painting Ryu Se-oyen created right before her death. Choi directs him to page 43 of the file, where he learns that this particular painting faced harsh criticism, a stark contrast to the admiration she usually received. This sudden backlash is speculated to have contributed to her tragic end. Guan examines the last painting Ryu Se-oyen created before her death. The background is murky, with white and red flowers scattered haphazardly. The brushstrokes are rough, and the oil paint gives it a strange expression. He notes that while it bears similarities to her previous works, it lacks the intense allure and unique expressiveness she was known for. Guan suggests that it appears as though someone tried to imitate Ryu Se-oyen's style rather than it being her authentic work. Choi adds that there are speculations suggesting the painting might not have been created by Ryu Se-oyen herself but possibly by someone else. Guan then questions if Choi is implying that Rae-hwa could be involved. Choi confirms that, for now, Rae-hwa seems to be the most likely candidate in this scenario. From the start, Guan feels something is off about the request. As he digs deeper into Daesan construction and Rae-hwa, things get more suspicious. Rae-hwa, who casually throws around 2 billion, even files for marriage to get away from her stepfather. Lee Jung-hwan, her stepfather, goes to great lengths to stop her. And then there's Ryu Seoyeon, who is caught up in the strange relationship between the two. Gwon thinks that the key to all of this is the paintings. In a flashback, he remembers how everything started. He thinks about the moment he first heard about Lee Rae-hwa's sudden decision to marry, and Lee Young-won's immediate reaction to intervene. It seemed strange then, and it's even stranger now. Gwon tells Choi that if Lee Rae-hwa actually painted Ryu Seoyeon's last work, the situation becomes incredibly complicated. He admits he doesn't know all the details, but it's possible that Chairman Daesan is really hiding Lee Rae-hwa to protect her. Gwon thinks that in this complex web of relationships, someone is definitely lying, but he's not sure who. Choi advises that for now, they shouldn't believe everything Lee Rae-hwa says. In a flashback, Gwon recalls the first time he suspected Lee Rae-hwa might be involved in the paintings. It was a turning point, making him question everything he thought he knew about the situation. The memory of that moment still nags at him, adding to his doubts about who he can trust. Gwon asks if it's true that Lee Rae-hwa was hospitalized in a mental hospital. He wonders if she got married to avoid being forcibly put back there, since Lee Jung-hwan, as a family member, would have a hard time doing that. He mentions that Ryu Seoyeon was mentally unstable from the start and that mental illnesses can be hereditary, so maybe Lee Rae-hwa really is mentally ill. But before Choi can finish his thought, Gwon cuts him off and says they're going to have a pre-engagement meeting. Choi is shocked and asks what Gwon is going to do and if he's going to contact someone. Gwon, confused, asks who he's supposed to contact. Choi clarifies that he's talking about the engagement pictures. Gwon, feeling a bit frustrated, reminds Choi that he's an orphan without parents. Lee Rae-hwa's family situation is complicated, and Gwon I-tae's isn't any simpler. Choi Jung thinks about it, wondering if Gwon knows about the mess he's in now that he's in Korea. Gwon, however, isn't too bothered, saying he knows but doesn't care and will deal with it eventually. Later, Choi Jung sincerely apologizes to Rae-hwa, admitting he messed up and begging for forgiveness while crying. Rae-hwa, surprised, tells him he doesn't need to go that far. Gwon, Choi, and Rae-hwa are eating together. Choi compliments Rae-hwa on her cooking and her skill with the electric shocker. Rae-hwa thanks him and tells them to enjoy their meal. Choi then mentions that he's not good at fighting but can defend himself and is good at fixing firearms and machines. Gwon adds that he formed a team for protection, consisting of himself, Choi, and 2 other people, making a total of 4. Choi tells Rae-hwa that he came to Korea first and the other team members will arrive later, mentioning they are all from the desert. Rae-hwa is concerned and asks if it's okay to bring them like this since she only paid for one person's commission fee. Choi reassures her, saying one of the people coming is the desert representative, so it's not a big deal. Rae-hwa seems confused, but Choi tells her not to worry too much, explaining that they're coming to Korea for business and just joining the team on the side. He adds that it's all because of Gwon I-tae. Gwon asks Rae-hwa if her husband is reliable, and she reminds him not to curse. Gwon rephrases and asks again if her husband is really reliable. Rae-hwa confirms, then asks where he learned those swear words. Gwon replies that you naturally learn swear words first, and he lived in Korea until high school. Rae-hwa is curious if he lived in Seoul, and Gwon tells her he lived next to her house, which she finds ridiculous. Gwon laughs and mentions that he bought kandori. Rae-hwa thanks him. Rae-hwa offers ice cream to Gwon after their meal, despite him previously calling it old-fashioned. Gwon takes a big bite, prompting Rae-hwa to playfully scold him and promise to get him another one. Gwon mentions that Choi Jung is upstairs taking care of things. Rae-hwa teases him about going upstairs, and Gwon jokes about a fee for modeling. She considers his offer with a playful attitude. Gwon gives Rae-hwa a nickname, Yeto, and she asks what it means. He explains it as pretty lunatic, and Rae-hwa jokingly accepts it, glad that pretty is included. Gwon then asks if she's scared to be with him. Confused, Rae-hwa asks what he means, and he elaborates, asking if she's afraid besides the life-threatening situations. She reassures him that she feels safe with him on her side. Gwon playfully suggests another fear, asking what if he kissed her right then and there. Rae-hwa sighs, downplaying the situation as trivial. She explains that if they're pretending to be a fake couple, a kiss shouldn't be a big deal. Guan interrupts her, refusing to kiss her and calling her pretty lunatic. He firmly states that he won't end their act with a kiss. The next day, despite the awkward incident yesterday, everything seems normal. Gwon I-tae is on guard duty and happens to be at the cafe where Rae-hwa is working part-time. It's quiet in the morning, so his presence as a customer isn't a problem. However, Rae-hwa can't shake off the memory of him mentioning wanting to kiss her. She wonders if he even cares about what happened. She's still bothered by yesterday's events, especially since Guan seemed emotional. She tries to decipher the meaning behind his words about not ending things with a kiss, but it's clear to her that he has feelings for her. Rae-hwa is confused about why Guan feels this way and what it means for their relationship. Despite Gwon I-tae's reputation as a seasoned mercenary with a decade of experience, facing countless life-threatening situations, Rae-hwa finds herself questioning why he would show interest in her, his employer. Although Guan can be impulsive, he usually thinks things through carefully. Rae-hwa struggles to understand why he would risk complicating their employer-employee relationship. These thoughts weigh heavily on her mind from the very first day of her part-time job. A male customer walks in, and Rae-hwa greets him. She suspects he might be sent by her father. He comments on her appearance, but she dismisses his compliments, thinking of him as just another thug. He asks for her number and suggests going for a drive sometime. Rae-hwa informs him that she's married, but he questions if she's really a college student. She clarifies that she's not, but he doesn't believe her. He insists on being friends, but Rae-hwa declines, warning him that her husband wouldn't approve if he keeps pushing. Guan steps in to defend Rae-hwa from the aggressive customer. The man questions Guan, but Rae-hwa tries to calm the situation, worried it might escalate like before. Guan reassures her it's fine and that she won't lose her job. However, the man persists and tries to punch Guan, who reacts quickly and punches him first to stop the altercation. Guan surprises Rae-hwa by revealing he bought the cafe the day she passed her interview. He jokes about her role as the boss and asks if she prefers being called an outstanding employee instead. Rae-hwa questions his unusual mix of work, including fighting, shooting guns, buying cafes, and even kissing. Guan playfully suggests kissing her, but Rae-hwa hesitates. He closes the door, implying he wants to take things further. Rae-hwa feels overwhelmed, her heart racing and ears hot. She knows she shouldn't give in to this craziness, but she finds herself unable to refuse. She reminds Guan of his earlier words about not ending things with just a kiss. Guan teases her, saying he'll be patient, but not too much. He asks if she's curious about what kissing him would be like. As they talk, Rae-hwa realizes something about herself. She's unexpectedly drawn to Guan's boldness and impulsiveness. Despite her inner conflict, she admits to feeling desire for him. Eventually, they share a kiss. They start getting intimate, but Rae-hwa pushes Guan away and tells him to stop. Guan says they should continue a bit more and tries to kiss her, but she bites him and says she's had enough. Rae-hwa asks when the man Guan hit will wake up. Guan replies that he needs to make sure he cracks the man's skull and lets him sleep deeply. Lee warns him that if he continues like that, he'll end up in prison. Rae-hwa thinks she might have made a mistake by biting him and asks if she hurt him. Guan says her teeth are so small that it's not noticeable, and adds that next time she should leave bruises. Rae-hwa firmly tells him there won't be a next time. It turns out that ever since Rae-hwa mentioned she'd interview for a job at the cafe, Gwon I-tae had already bought it from the owner. No wonder the owner seemed overly eager to pass her in the interview. Before she knows it, the day for the arranged meeting with her father arrives. Rae-hwa looks into the freezer and asks why Guan bought so much kantori. She thinks to herself that, despite his appearance, Gwon I-tae is always considerate. He carefully chose a ring design that wouldn't interfere with her drawing. He also bought the cafe and didn't push the boss position on her. Instead, he hired a former longtime employee, gave them a generous salary, and made them the manager. Thanks to that, Rae-hwa only has to carry the title of boss and work in the mornings. He even created a place for Rae-hwa to work without any hassle. He buys a lot of kantori because she mentioned she liked it. He can scare people in strange ways, acting rough enough to surprise someone. He engages in vulgar behavior with a fiery expression, but is not afraid of Les Jung-hwan. Rae-hwa recalls when she spoke to her father. Guan willingly believes words that nobody else believes. He shows unexpected consideration, which actually scares Rae-hwa. His actions are stimulating and inspiring, making her think he might disrupt her mental stability, like the impulsive kiss in the cafe. Meanwhile, Guan walks towards her. Guan asks Rae-hwa if she saw the kanjoki he bought. She corrects him, saying it's not kanjoki. He then asks what it is, maybe kandoki? He notices her looking at him and asks if it's because he's wearing a suit. He jokes that she didn't care when he was walking around half naked. She replies that she was concerned even then, thinking he might be an exhibitionist. Guan laughs and reminds her that she wanted to go to the shop before going to the hotel, so they should get going to avoid being late. The arranged meeting place is the DS Hotel in the Gangbuk district. Known for its spacious greenery and views of the Han River, it's a top-notch hotel with a long history and tradition. Rae-hwa's mother's exhibitions were always held there. When they arrive, they meet a butler who offers to guide them. Since the meeting is at the DS Hotel, Rae-hwa thinks her father probably won't be the only one coming. Considering the hotel's owner is Lee Hak-soo, his wife Kang Myok and daughter Lee Seon might also show up. They both walk into a room and see Kang Myok. Kang Myok welcomes Rae-hwa and tells her that the chairman might be a little late. She says that after hearing they would meet at a hotel, she decided to come to greet the chairman and see Rae-hwa after a long time. She adds that apart from times like this, it's hard for them to see each other. Rae-hwa agrees. Kang Myok asks Rae-hwa why she doesn't keep in touch more often and shows her disappointment. She mentions that Rae-hwa has gained some weight and advises her to take care of herself. She says that even with her tall stature, a little weight gain is noticeable. Kang Myok adds that Seon looks cute with a bit of chubbiness because she's small, but Rae-hwa needs to stay slim to be pretty. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that Kang Myok hasn't changed at all. The door opens and Seon comes in, saying hello to Rae-hwa. She also greets Mr. I-tae and adds that she didn't have a chance to greet him properly before. Seon asks Gwon I-tae if he remembers her because she remembered him right away, and then says they got engaged before. Rae-hwa starts laughing, but Seon insists it's true and asks again if he doesn't remember her. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that it doesn't seem like Seon is lying because she isn't good at controlling her expressions. If she were lying, it would be obvious. And if it were a lie that would be exposed easily, Kang Myok would have stopped her first. Seon tells Gwon that she hasn't told the chairman who he is, and that no one really knows him except for her and her mom. Even her dad doesn't know him. Gwon asks what she wants him to do. Seon is surprised by the question and says she'll keep it a secret for him. Gwon then asks if she's threatening him and wonders if he should threaten her back. Kang Myok steps in front of her daughter and says that Seon wasn't threatening him. She explains that she just wanted to meet him. Kang Myok mentions that she tried to contact him but couldn't get through at all. She adds that since he's always with Rae-hwa, it's hard for them to meet separately. Kang Myok explains that it might be hard to remember since it was 10 years ago, but there was an engagement between their families. She wanted to greet him because she found the connection interesting. Gwon asks if it was really 10 years ago. Kang Myok agrees and tells him to think carefully. Gwon says he doesn't remember the engagement, but he vaguely remembers someone coming and begging for something. Rae-hwa calls Gwon and asks him what's going on. He says it's nothing but a misunderstanding. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that something seems to be happening in Gwon's dark eyes. He seems to have something to hide, and if she digs now, she might uncover his secret. But she knows that if she does, he could get hurt, and she doesn't want that. So, she just says okay. Seon gets angry and asks if Rae-hwa is pretending nothing is wrong and if she thinks Seon is lying about being engaged to Mr. Gwon. Rae-hwa replies that she should assume everything Seon said is true because she really doesn't care. She tells Seon to stop being interested in someone else's husband and asks why she's acting so pathetic. Seon starts crying and asks if what Rae-hwa said isn't too harsh. Kang Myok comforts Seon and tells her she's kind-hearted. Then, Kang Myok turns to Rae-hwa and asks why she's showing her vulgar and crude side. Just then, the chairman walks in through the door. Kang Myok welcomes the chairman and says she was waiting to greet him briefly. The chairman asks about Hak-soo, and Kang Myok explains that he traveled abroad for a while because something urgent came up. The chairman then asks why Seon is crying. Seon tries to explain, but Kang Myok says that Rae-hwa said something harsh and that Seon is too soft-hearted and gets hurt easily. She adds that it's natural for kids to have fights and tells him not to worry about it. The chairman asks if Rae-hwa has anything to say, but she stays quiet. Kang Myok says she will quickly help the kids make up. However, the chairman interrupts her by slapping her. He says that even though her children don't know much, she should have made sure Seon didn't act thoughtlessly in front of Rae-hwa. Kang Myok apologizes to the chairman, admitting she was short-sighted. Then she goes over to apologize to Rae-hwa. But Rae-hwa is actually disgusted. Kang Myok asks if Rae-hwa has a headache or feels dizzy. Rae-hwa thinks it's not just Kang Myok's pathetic look that bothers her. It's the fact that her dad created this whole mess. To everyone else, he seems like a perfect dad who always protects and cares for his daughter. But he's ruthless about even the smallest mistakes. Rae-hwa feels like he's intentionally pushing people away from her, pretending it's all about protection. It seems like he wants to be the only one left in her life. Rae-hwa tells Kang Myok that she's fine and doesn't have any pain. Then, Rae-hwa tells the chairman that they came for a pre-engagement meeting, and this whole commotion is making things awkward in front of her future husband. The chairman agrees with her. Kang Myok says that she and Seon will be leaving now. The chairman then tells the waiter to serve the meal and bring the flowers. The waiter says okay and places the flowers in front of Rae-hwa. The chairman mentions that it's been a while since he saw Rae-hwa and he didn't want to come empty-handed, so he brought flowers that he knows she likes. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she might throw up and is having trouble breathing. She really wants to get out of the room to escape the smell of the flowers, but Guan is holding her hand. The chairman says that Rae-hwa's mom also loved flowers and he feels lucky to have Rae-hwa since S2-e-1 left. He wonders what he would have done if Rae-hwa hadn't been there and adds that he sees her as the last gift her mom gave him. The waiters start serving the food. The chairman mentions that although this is a pre-engagement meeting, it seems pretty simple. Guan asks his father-in-law if he didn't know Guan was an orphan. The chairman says he figured it out when they talked on the phone and adds that Guan is pretty straightforward. He then asks Rae-hwa if she's doing okay. Rae-hwa replies that she's feeling mentally stable now that she's with someone she loves and says he doesn't need to worry. The chairman tells her she still needs to see a doctor, but she says it's not necessary. He asks if she's still having delusions, like thinking he broke her finger. She says that's a lie and asks if he's still denying it. Gwon I-tae then calls his father-in-law and asks if he wants to step outside for a cigarette with him. Gwon I-tae steps outside to call Choi Jung and complains that his eyes feel like they're about to pop out. Choi tells him that there's no lens thinner than this one, it's the latest ultra-thin camera. Gwon explains that there are fewer bodyguards than he expected, but they're all armed with gas guns. He adds that it's funny to see the naive idea that he can control everything just by having more people. Choi says the meeting was pretty intense. He adds that Lee Jung-hwan slapped Kang Myok, and from what he can see, Lee Jung-hwan seems to care a lot about her. Choi wonders why she's in such bad shape, especially since Guan had a chance to talk. He suggests they should find out who's telling the truth. The chairman walks over to Guan and tells him that he did some checking and found that everything about Guan is fake. He says Guan has been using a false identity since he turned 18 and couldn't find any information about what he did before that. He admits that he's never been unable to find any information like this before and asks Guan what kind of person he really is. Guan asks what the chairman means and says he's just a guy who stole his daughter. The chairman agrees and says he wants to be honest too. He says he doesn't approve of Guan and adds that Guan should think about it from his own perspective. He asks if Guan would send his own precious daughter to someone like him. Guan says it would probably be different if he were in the chairman's place. The chairman says that since Rae-hwa likes Guan, he's willing to accept their relationship. He suggests they should find a way to make things work and tells Guan to bring Rae-hwa to live in his house. Guan thinks that the conversation is going as he expected. He asks his father-in-law if it isn't too much to ask for a newlywed couple to live with their in-laws. The chairman says Guan has some misconceptions and shouldn't be so hostile. He adds that if Guan really loves Rae-hwa, he should trust him instead. The chairman explains that Rae-hwa might say strange things about him, but she has some mental health issues. He says she even had inpatient treatment but is still very unstable. He finishes by saying that Guan shouldn't believe everything Rae-hwa says just because he loves her. Guan calls the chairman father-in-law and tells him to be quiet for now. The chairman is shocked. Guan then asks if he really broke Rae-hwa's fingers. The chairman asks if Rae-hwa didn't tell him that she lost her childhood memories. He explains that Rae-hwa was in a mental hospital because she saw her mother commit suicide. The shock was so intense that she lost her memories and started having delusions. He says he didn't break her finger. Instead, after her mother's death, Rae-hwa tried to draw like her mother and hurt her finger by bumping into something when he tried to stop her. Because of this trauma, she couldn't draw for a while and still holds a grudge and tells lies about him. The chairman adds that her delusions have gotten worse, so she had to be hospitalized again for a while. Guan punches the chairman, and the guards shout to protect him. Guan tells the chairman not to worry, saying he doesn't need guns to handle them. Choi calls Guan a crazy bastard and points out that he came for a meeting but now it's like a funeral. Guan beats up all the men and asks his father-in-law if that's all he can bring. He tells him that he cares about Rae-hwa a lot and is willing to listen to whatever she says. Unless she says with her own words that she wants to go home, it might be hard for him to go to his father-in-law's house. Guan also feels that his father-in-law is lying about breaking Rae-hwa's finger. Guan decides to make a bet with his father-in-law. Choi tells Guan that he can't risk his whole life because of this and asks how Guan could just beat up the chairman without thinking. Guan asks for May, and Choi says she and Schmidt are delaying their entry into the country to look into the collector Lu Jin. Guan tells Choi to have May find out how much of what Lee Jung-hwan said is true and how much is a lie. Guan thinks Lee Jung-hwan is definitely lying, but there seems to be some truth mixed in. Choi warns that digging deeper might be illegal and asks if they should still go ahead. Guan says yes, they should proceed. He tells Choi to investigate the hospital where Rae-hwa was admitted more thoroughly and says he will visit there personally soon. Choi says he understands but points out that Guan usually stays calm and collected no matter what the other person says. He asks why Guan is so impulsive now. Guan brushes off the question, saying he's off work today and they should discuss the remaining work tomorrow. Choi says he understands. Guan asks himself why he's acting so strangely when it comes to anything related to Rae-hwa. It feels like he's about to lose his temper. It bothers him, and he gets too involved, which makes him even more provoked and eventually leads him to act impulsively. He opens the door to meet Rae-hwa. Rae-hwa asks if it's over. Guan is still thinking to himself that he has had his share of craziness before, but when he looks into her eyes, he feels an overwhelming surge of emotions that he can't quite understand. He wonders what he should do about her. He finally answers her question, saying the meeting is over and they should go home. They both get into the car, and Rae-hwa calls Guan. As she waits for him to answer, she thinks about all the questions she wants to ask. She wants to know about the engagement with Lee Se-on, what Guan talked about with her father, and why he doesn't ask about her past. But she can't bring herself to say anything. She still doesn't have the courage. Instead, Rae-hwa asks Guan if he'd like to have a drink with her. He thinks she's really strange for asking that. Rae-hwa wonders if it's odd to make such an offer. Then she asks if he wants to eat ramen. Guan asks why she keeps making people misunderstand her. She questions what ramen has to do with it, and he asks if she doesn't watch movies. She says she only watches action movies. He tells her not to say things like that to other people, and she agrees. When they get home, Guan asks Rae-hwa if she's going to have the ramen. After they eat, he mentions that he hasn't had ramen in a while and didn't realize it was so spicy. Rae-hwa asks if it's too spicy and offers him some milk. Guan says it's okay, and Rae-hwa tells him he's cute. Guan frowns. Guan leans forward and says they've had their ramen, so now can they have a drink? Rae-hwa agrees. Guan suggests they drink on the second floor. Rae-hwa reminds him that he said the second floor is dangerous. Guan says it's okay if she follows him. They go upstairs, and Rae-hwa sees a collection of guns. She says it feels like a scene from a movie and asks if you can buy guns in Korea. Guan explains that there are usually a lot of second-hand guns coming from Russia to Korea, but his are from his private collection. Rae-hwa asks if he knows how to use all of them. Guan asks if she wants him to show her by shooting them one by one. Rae-hwa says there's no need. Guan tells Rae-hwa that if she finds a gun she likes, he'll give it to her. She says there's no need and that she doesn't even know how to shoot. Guan says he'll teach her, and if there's someone she wants to kill, she should shoot them. Rae-hwa asks if there's someone Guan wants to shoot. He says there was. She asks if he doesn't want to shoot them anymore, and he says no because he has already killed them. Guan asks if Rae-hwa isn't surprised. She says she is and wonders if it isn't strange for someone like him to spare the person he wants to kill. Guan agrees that she has a point. She then asks why he killed them. Guan explains that it wasn't planned or an accident but more like negligence. She asks if they were family, and he says yes, then asks how she knew. Rae-hwa says she has experienced something similar and wants to know what she talked about with her father. Rae-hwa wonders if Gwon I-tae thinks she's lying too, if he believes she's just saying nonsense and making things up because she's delusional. Gwon tells Rae-hwa that her father was talking nonsense but asks why her father broke her finger. Rae-hwa explains to Gwon that her father, Lee Jung-hwan, secretly caught her setting up an art studio and drawing. He was worried that Rae-hwa would turn out like her mother, and he didn't want to lose her. But Rae-hwa couldn't believe it. She asks how someone can break their daughter's finger and send her to a mental hospital. Rae-hwa tells Gwon that she doesn't remember anything from before her mother died. Her childhood memories are scattered and incomplete. She only clearly remembers the moment her mother passed away. She thinks that her strong urge to draw might be an unconscious effort to recover those lost memories, which has driven her to the edge of madness. Rae-hwa tells Gwon that her hands naturally want to draw, but she also feels a strong, frightening need to draw. Every time she tries, her father questions why she wants to remember painful memories. Even though it feels like she has to recover those memories, it seems like there's a truth she doesn't know, and no one has told her why her mother died in front of her. Rae-hwa feels like a fool but says she will still try her best to draw Gwon well. Gwon grabs her hand, and she thinks to herself that his eyes are heavy, deep, and have a slight bluish tint. She wonders if she can capture the color of his eyes in her drawing. Rae-hwa touches Gwon's face and tells him his eyes are very pretty. She asks if he can give them to her. He laughs and says she can't take his eyeballs out, but he'll give her something else instead, and then he kisses her. He says that the sofa is small because it's meant for only one person, and then he picks her up and sits her on his lap. Gwon tells Rae-hwa that he wants to see her painting next time. She says she doesn't want to because she'll feel embarrassed. He asks why, and she explains that she's worried he might look at her strangely. Gwon starts leaving bite marks on spots where they can be seen. She asks him to leave them where they'll be visible, but he moves to places where the marks won't show. They start getting intimate, but she tells him to stop. Gwon says she's in big trouble for seducing him so carelessly and just touches her. Gwon decides to use protection despite Rae-hwa's protests, and they get intimate for the first time. Rae-hwa keeps begging him to stop, and after a while, he does. She feels like it's over, but he isn't finished yet. The next morning, Rae-hwa wakes up and remembers that she slept with Gwon I-tae. It was rough and intense, and her whole body aches. Her lower region feels sore and swollen. She notices she's dressed and wonders if Gwon cleaned her up. Gwon tells Rae-hwa to stop moving around because she might hurt herself if they do it again. She thinks to herself that if he had any conscience, he wouldn't say that. Rae-hwa gets out of bed and picks up a cigarette. She asks Gwon if he's still smoking it. He asks if she remembers anything or if anything is coming to her mind. She says no. He then asks if she wants to try smoking, and even though she says no, she suddenly has a flashback. In her flashback, Rae-hwa feels the humid air and feels the hot sun beating down. She sees small patches of shade and hears the leaves rustling in the breeze, with sunlight filtering through them. She sees a young boy who looks innocent but has visible bruises on his body. He seems so fragile, as if he could break at any moment. Under the bright sunlight, his face is covered in shadows, and he says he'll kill her. Then, the flashback shifts to her mother at the moment of her death. Presently, Gwon I-tae calls her name and asks if she's okay. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that the last memory blocking her mind is the final image of her mother. She tells Gwon that she's fine and apologizes for what happened. Gwon asks what mistake she's referring to. Rae-hwa explains that she made a mistake yesterday while under the influence of alcohol. He then asks if she is going to act like she doesn't remember anything after being with him. She asks what he means. He wonders if she didn't enjoy it. Rae-hwa replies that it's not that. Guan says he thought they had a good experience since she climaxed yesterday, and he asks if it wasn't satisfying. Rae-hwa admits that she's feeling scared. Guan asks Rae-hwa if she's scared. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she's afraid of causing problems with Guan, but then reminds herself that their relationship is just a contract. Guan tells Rae-hwa not to look so frightened because he won't force himself on anyone who doesn't want it. He adds that he wasn't planning to get serious with her. Guan says they should go back to their original agreement. He tells her to get some more rest, but he has some work to do, so he'll be out for a while. Guan is practicing shooting when a woman named May calls him. She says that Choi mentioned Guan is in a good mood, but it doesn't seem that way to her. Guan asks what she means because he feels great. May laughs and says if his current expression means he's feeling good, then he should go back to the hospital. She tells him she has checked everything he asked about and is sending the data to him. She also complains about the slow network and says that Choi just logged in, so she'll connect him right away. Choi sees Guan's face and asks why he looks like that. May asks if something happened between Guan and Rae-hwa and wants to know what their relationship is. Guan explains that it's just a work relationship and says they should focus on their tasks. May then says the data transfer is complete and that they've found something new. It turns out that Rae-hwa wasn't found with Ryu Se-yeon's body. According to the paramedics who were at the scene, Rae-hwa actually witnessed Ryu Se-yeon dying slowly by hanging. May explains that Ryu Se-yeon had tied Rae-hwa up and showed her how she was going to die. May adds that it's unclear why Ryu Se-yeon did such a horrific thing since Daesan has never officially explained it. May says that Rae-hwa, the only witness, was deeply shocked and became very quiet after the incident. Rae-hwa says it's more because she can't respond due to memory loss. Since Lee Jung-hwan was very protective of his daughter, the police investigation didn't uncover much. May also mentions that there was one notable thing during the investigation. After Rae-hwa was discharged from the mental hospital, the doctor who treated her died a few months later. Choi says the timing looks suspicious. May agrees and adds that while the doctor is dead, the nurse in charge is still working at the hospital. Guan decides he will go to the hospital and talk to the nurse. May says that's fine and adds there's another report about Lu Jin. She explains that after Ryu Se-yeon died, Rae-hwa secretly drew some pictures. Lee Jung-hwan later found and disposed of several of these drawings. However, during the disposal, an employee stole a few of Rae-hwa's paintings and claimed they were unreleased works of Ryu Se-yeon. These stolen paintings ended up being sold at an underground auction and eventually ended up in Lu Jin's hands. Lu Jin is a famous casino owner in Macao and was a big fan of Ryu Se-yeon. Guan asks if Lu Jin might have confused Rae-hwa's paintings with Ryu Se-yeon's. May says yes, since their painting styles are similar. Choi wonders if that's because they are mother and daughter. May explains that after Lu Jin bought the paintings, she realized they were too fresh to be Ryu Se-yeon's work. At first, Lu Jin was very angry, but then she wanted to find a perfect imitation of Ryu Se-yeon's style. However, the employee who stole the paintings had already been dealt with by Lee Jung-hwan. It looks like Lu Jin also discovered Rae-hwa and even found out that she is Korean. Choi is surprised that Rae-hwa is attracting so much attention, with at least 3 people targeting her now. May calls Lee Jung-hwan, Lu Jin, and asks who the third person is. Choi says it's Guan, and then Choi and May start laughing. Guan asks them if they're bored. May gives him the hospital address and the nurse's contact information, then says goodbye, leaving Choi and Guan alone. Choi tells Guan that he seems a bit off. Guan says he plans to visit the hospital in 2 days, so Choi should look after Rae-hwa in his place. Choi agrees but asks if something happened between Guan and Rae-hwa. Guan remembers when Rae-hwa said she was scared of him. He thinks about why she would be scared, especially since she didn't even flinch when he shot someone when they first met. There must be another reason, but he can't force her to tell him. Then he recalls when she said his eyes were pretty. Guan thinks to himself that Rae-hwa started it first. She was so cute and drunk that he couldn't resist. Choi asks Guan what's wrong, but Guan is lost in his thoughts. He wonders why Rae-hwa was scared in the morning. Choi asks what happened, and Guan says he won't drink anymore. Guan tells Rae-hwa that he has somewhere to go and that Choi Jung will be in charge of her care today. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that after talking about going back to their old agreement, Guan acted like nothing happened that night. She was worried she might have hurt him, but thankfully, he seemed fine. Still, she feels uneasy and awkward. At dinner, Choi starts talking to Rae-hwa. He asks if she has any concerns, and Rae-hwa says it's nothing. Choi mentions that Guan is so strange that it must be tough living with him. He tells her that if she has any complaints or questions, she can always talk to him. He also says he can help with gossiping about Guan, especially since she made him dinner tonight. Rae-hwa says okay and tells Choi that the reason Gwon I-tae went out today is to check if she's mentally ill. Choi says that's right. Rae-hwa thinks Guan must have gone to the hospital where she was treated. She guesses that Guan is trying to figure out what's really going on after the chairman probably told him that her issues were just delusions from being mentally ill. Rae-hwa says she's not asking Choi to believe she's perfectly normal, just that she's not as crazy as some might think. Choi tells her not to worry because Gwon I-tae does believe in her. He adds that it's getting late, so they should finish their meal and head back quickly. Choi shows Rae-hwa a faster route. Rae-hwa says the road seems a bit inconvenient for this late hour. As they walk, they spot some men nearby. Choi asks Rae-hwa if she brought her electric shocker. Meanwhile, Gwon looks at the hospital where Rae-hwa was treated. He comments that even though it's called a hospital, it looks more like a high-end care facility. A man approaches and asks if Gwon I-tae is him. Gwon confirms and then asks if the man is nurse Kang Jeon-ho. The nurse says yes. Gwon apologizes for calling him out like this and explains that he's looking for a place for his family to be treated. He says that someone he knows was treated at this hospital before and spoke highly of the nurse, so he wanted to learn more and meet him. Nurse Kang Jeon-ho understands and thinks to himself that if someone like Gwon, who wears luxury items, brings someone to his hospital, they would be treated like a VIP patient. Gwon asks nurse Kang Jeon-ho if he knows Lee Rae-hwa. The nurse says he does. Gwon then gives him a gift and asks him to take good care of his family when they're in the hospital. Nurse Kang Jeon-ho thinks to himself that the gift is quite generous and wonders if Gwon expects something in return. He knows that rich people often use the hospital for relaxation or to make sure their family members get special treatment. Gwon tells the nurse that since he looks older, he can speak to him casually. The nurse asks if that's okay, and Gwon says yes, adding that he'll be paying for their drinks. Nurse Kang Jeon-ho mentions that he's able to enjoy a place like this thanks to his little brother and that Gwon will see many things if he lives long enough. Gwon then asks if the nurse is drunk. The nurse denies it and says he's still fine. Nurse Kang Jeon-ho asks Gwon if his family is close to Lee Rae-hwa's family. Gwon says yes, their parents are close, but he doesn't know much about her. The nurse then asks if Rae-hwa is really doing well, and Gwon confirms that she is. The nurse looks pleased and says Rae-hwa shouldn't have ended up in the hospital in the first place. Gwon asks him to explain. The nurse says he wasn't the doctor, but from what he observed, Rae-hwa never caused any trouble like other patients. Honestly, she seemed normal, but there was something about her that seemed off. Gwon asks the nurse to explain more. The nurse says the doctor always gave Rae-hwa strong medication. At first, even though she cried and begged to be let go, she seemed okay. But after she was put in isolation and continued with the medication, her mental health got worse. Eventually, she couldn't even remember why she was in the hospital. The nurse heard that she was admitted because of mental trauma, but it was clear her family forced her into it. The nurse mentions that there are patients like that. Gwon then asks if the doctor took money from Rae-hwa's family to keep her locked up. The nurse says that the doctor in charge of Rae-hwa has already left the hospital, so he doesn't know much more. Gwon says that the nurse seems to remember a lot about Rae-hwa. The nurse admits that seeing Rae-hwa tied to the bed became a strange hobby for him. He found it oddly provocative and enjoyed seeing her like that, but there were surveillance cameras in the isolation room, so he couldn't do anything more. Gwon asks what would have happened if there weren't any cameras. Before the nurse can answer, Gwon smashes a bottle over his head. Gwon tells the nurse to keep talking and asks how long he plans to keep begging. He steps on the nurse's head and the nurse apologizes. Gwon then tells him that Rae-hwa will not be admitted to that hospital again, so he should stop looking for her. Gwon thinks to himself that if only the doctor were alive, this would be resolved quickly. He is certain that Lee Jung-hwan killed the doctor and erased Rae-hwa's memories with medication. Suddenly, he feels a beep from his phone. It's a GPS notification for Rae-hwa. May calls him and says she thinks Rae-hwa has been kidnapped. Guan is surprised. May says that both signals are out of range and they've gone beyond the set radius. She adds that Choi wouldn't disappear without a word, so this must be a kidnapping. Guan says that if this happened with Choi by her side, the kidnappers must be skilled. May says she'll send possible locations. Guan says he's heading out and tells May to monitor Lee Jung-won's account records, identify the kidnappers, and buy some time. May says she understands. At the place where they were kidnapped, Choi apologizes to Rae-hwa, admitting that he's not good at fighting. He reassures her that Gwon I-tae will be there soon, so she should hang on a little longer. Rae-hwa says it's okay, explaining that if this were a regular kidnapping, it wouldn't have escalated to this point. She notes that the chairman has employed many dangerous people before, but this is the first time he's mobilized so many personnel. She adds that it seems the chairman is determined to see this through to the end. Choi looks confused by her statement. He tells Rae-hwa that if her hands are uncomfortable, he can loosen the ties a bit, just in case she needs to escape unexpectedly. He moves closer and loosens the bindings. He asks if it's better now, and she says yes, thanking him. Then she asks why the kidnappers are fighting so fiercely outside while they're tied up. Choi says it sounds like they have different opinions due to a money issue. Rae-hwa asks Choi if he's okay because he has seemed uneasy for a while, but it doesn't seem to be because of the kidnappers. Choi says it's because it's time for Gwon's crazy disease to relapse. She asks what he means by crazy disease, and just then, a car smashes through the wall. The kidnappers are shocked by the car crashing through the wall and ask who the driver is. Gwon I-tae steps out of the car and walks toward them. One of the kidnappers asks who it is, and another says it seems they got scared for nothing. Then, one of the kidnappers' phones starts ringing. He answers and tells the caller that she surprised him. The caller, May, asks if the negotiator has arrived. The kidnapper is surprised and asks if the guy who rammed his car into the wall is the negotiator. May tells him that if he agrees, they'll double the money he received before. The kidnapper says the chairman just wanted him to destroy Rae-hwa's hands. He was waiting for May for such a simple task, but now she wants him to return Rae-hwa without even touching a strand of her hair for just double the price. He asks if it isn't a bit mismatched. May tells the kidnapper that she had to buy time until the negotiator arrived. Now that he's there, she asks if he can hear her and suggests he should do it moderately, but the kidnapper says he won't. Choi calls Gwon I-tae and tells him they're in Korea and he shouldn't do anything crazy. Gwon points a gun at the kidnappers and tells Choi to take care of Rae-hwa. Although the view is blocked, the sound of a machine gun and a piercing scream can be heard. After a while, Gwon tells Rae-hwa to open her eyes. Rae-hwa opens her eyes and sees a pool of blood on the ground. The air is cold, accompanied by painful groans. She feels like she is walking in hell. Gwon I-tae walks up to one of the kidnappers and steps on his head. Choi Jung calls Gwon and reminds him that they have a lot to uncover about the mastermind behind this. He adds that Rae-hwa is there, watching everything. Choi calls May and tells her he managed to stop the bloodshed, likely because Rae-hwa is there, but asks what they will do with the mess. Meanwhile, Gwon walks towards Rae-hwa. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she can smell blood, it's like slaughtering an animal. Gwon tells Rae-hwa to give him her hand. He grabs it and asks her if he smells like alcohol, apologizing for getting drunk because he knows she hates drunk drivers. A warning siren blares in Rae-hwa's head, like someone turned on an alarm. Her overflowing emotions have reached a dangerous level, signaling her to stop, but she can't look away. The man who crashed his car into the building to rescue her, who used machine guns and caused bloodshed in Korea, is now cowering, afraid of displeasing her for drunk driving. Gwon always seems carefree and relaxed, like he's wearing a mask, yet sometimes he shows a nightmarish violence. Rae-hwa wants to explore what Gwon is hiding deep inside. She wants to know everything about him. Rae-hwa feels an urge to draw Gwon right away. Her fingers tremble, eager to hold a brush. Gwon keeps calling her name, but she doesn't answer. He asks why she's silent and if her tongue is hurt. He tells her to open her mouth so he can see. She opens her mouth and licks his finger. Guan pulls his finger away and tells Rae-hwa that if she keeps looking at him like that, he might get the wrong idea. He's about to speak again when she holds his face and tells him that he scares her. He asks if she's still scared of him and if he should leave and call Choi-jung. Rae-hwa shakes her head. Guan wonders if, despite all his efforts, he scared her again. He realizes it must be hard for her to have a normal conversation with someone who just brandished a machine gun. Guan asks Rae-hwa if she's upset that he came late and apologizes for not being there to protect her. Rae-hwa reaches for Guan's face and thinks to herself that she's scared he'll ruin her and destroy the stability she has found. Even though she feels like she's falling apart, the desire to draw him is even stronger, like a moth drawn to a flame. It feels like there's no way to escape. Rae-hwa kisses Guan. Guan pulls back, and Rae-hwa tells him she wants to draw. Guan agrees, and they head home. Choi-jung and May are talking. Choi says that no matter how he looks at it, what happened is beyond reason. He thinks they should send Lee Jung-hwan to the hospital. May agrees because she can't believe Lee Jung-hwan would send gangsters to harm Rae-hwa's hands. Choi adds that the fear of Rae-hwa going mad and possibly committing suicide, like her mother, if she draws, is beyond reason. Choi thanks May for buying them some time. May says the kidnappers are dumb. Since they offered double the money Lee Jung-hwan gave, the kidnappers split into groups. One group wanted to stick to the original plan, while the other took the double money, causing a pointless fight among themselves. Choi says one thing is clear, all of Lee Jung-won's claims about caring for his daughter are lies. May wonders why Lee Jung-hwan is being so cruel. She asks why he's trying to stop Rae-hwa from drawing, even though her drawing style is just like her mother's. It shouldn't cause any problems just by making a few drawings. Choi says it would be easier to understand if they knew what happened the day Ryu Seoyeon died. May then asks about Rae-hwa. Choi explains that when Rae-hwa got home, she locked herself in her studio and started drawing non-stop. He didn't understand why, but it seems the events of that night inspired her. May asks what kind of inspiration Rae-hwa could get from that night. Choi says he doesn't really understand, but that's how artists are. Then, May asks about Guan. Choi explains that Guan is meeting with the cleaning company that Schmidt set up. May is surprised and asks if there's a company in Korea that cleans crime scenes. Choi says yes, and adds that luckily it's on the outskirts, so dealing with it is relatively easy. May calls Sayu, and the man answers, annoyed, saying he had warned her not to call him that name. He explains that he met with Lu Jin first and that Lu Jin knows more than he expected. Apparently, Lu Jin was looking for Rae-hwa even before they were hired, so blocking Lu Jin is getting difficult. Schmidt suggests calling Gwon I-tae to discuss the situation because they have important matters to talk about. Choi starts to say that if there's a discussion, Schmidt adds that Lu Jin has offered some very favorable conditions. Schmidt, the CEO of the private military desert company, is the one making these statements. At Guan and Rae-hwa's house, Guan knocks on the door and says sorry for interrupting Rae-hwa. He tells her she needs to eat something because she has been up all night. As Guan looks around the room, he wonders if Rae-hwa's room is filled with drawings of him. While they are eating, Guan asks Rae-hwa if she really loves drawing so much. She says yes. Then, he asks her if she wants to go to Macao. Rae-hwa is surprised by Guan's sudden proposal. She tells him she doesn't have a passport. Guan asks why not, and Rae-hwa explains that the chairman doesn't like her going abroad, so she has never been out of the country. Guan says the chairman must be up to something. Rae-hwa wonders if Guan wants her to escape to a foreign country because of the accident. Guan says it wasn't an accident and is not escaping. He tells her she will go alone. Rae-hwa asks why she has to go alone. Guan tells Rae-hwa that there's someone interested in her drawings who can protect her from Lee Jung-hwan and has the resources to help her draw freely. Rae-hwa asks if this person is in Macao, and Guan says yes. She wonders why he isn't going with her, and Guan explains that she won't need him there and it would be a waste of money to keep him around. He adds that if she goes to Macao, he'll return the remaining commission. Rae-hwa says she's not going. Rae-hwa asks Guan if he's joking about the commission and why he can change the conditions whenever he wants. She thinks to herself that she shouldn't get too upset. She understands that Guan is just trying to do his job and make sure she's safe, But what's really making her angry is that he told her to go alone. She expected they would move together as a matter of course, even though she knows their relationship will end once the commission is over. Guan asks Rae-hwa if she knows that Lee Jung-hwan was behind the kidnapping. He explains that if she stays in Korea, something like that could happen again, and he wants her to be safe while drawing in Macao. He asks if her safety isn't the most important thing to her. Rae-hwa replies that sudden changes can be really tough mentally, and if she goes to Macao, she'll need time to get used to it. She doesn't want to waste time adjusting, and she insists that she won't go alone, so he shouldn't suggest it again. Guan pulls Rae-hwa closer and asks if she would go to Macao if he went with her. Rae-hwa almost says yes but then tells Guan that she won't go. She decides to stay in Korea so he can keep an eye on her. She adds that if she gets kidnapped again, she'll cut the commission in half. Guan agrees and says he'll make sure she doesn't need to go to Macao. Guan talks on his phone and asks if the caller heard what Rae-hwa said, that she won't go even if it means risking her life. The caller introduces himself to Rae-hwa as Schmidt, the representative from the desert. Schmidt tells Rae-hwa that he plans to come to Korea soon and wants to meet her in person to introduce himself properly. He asks if they can set up a meeting. Rae-hwa agrees, and Schmidt says he'll get in touch with her through Guan before ending the call. Rae-hwa finds this interesting, and Guan asks what she finds interesting. She says that Mr. Schmidt seems to speak Korean very well. Guan mentions that there's also someone on Schmidt's team named May from Thailand who is even better at Korean. Rae-hwa asks how everyone learned Korean. Guan explains that May has always been interested in Korean, and Schmidt learned it because of him, Guan. Rae-hwa asks what Guan did to make people learn Korean, and Guan says it's natural for people to work hard when they want to improve. Rae-hwa gets a text, and Guan asks who it is from. She says it's from her cousin, Lee Sun-woo, who is the eldest son of Lee Hak-soo and the older brother of Lee Se-on. Lee Sun-woo sends another text saying he misses Rae-hwa. Guan laughs and asks if cousins really say such embarrassing things these days. He adds that the world must be getting better. Rae-hwa replies that Lee Sun-woo is just her cousin and they aren't very close. Guan wonders if that's suspicious and tells Rae-hwa to explain. He says it's odd for Lee Sun-woo to send messages like that when they're not close. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she hopes Guan isn't feeling jealous. Guan asks if Lee Sun-woo could be following Lee Young-won's orders. Rae-hwa realizes that this is what Guan meant by suspicious. Rae-hwa explains that her uncle Hak-soo is eager to get his son Sun-woo into Daesan construction. Since the chairman only has Rae-hwa, the adopted daughter, Hak-soo wants his son to take over the company. Although Sun-woo needs to prove himself to the chairman, he isn't like Lee Se-on, who caused trouble. Rae-hwa adds that Sun-woo is actually the only sane one in the family. Guan asks Rae-hwa what she knows about other people's feelings. Rae-hwa agrees and wonders if Lee Se-on knows about this. She thinks that Lee Se-on was always overly fond of her brother and would probably go crazy if she found out Rae-hwa is meeting him alone. Rae-hwa remembers that Lee Se-on and Guan almost got engaged, and she figures that asking Lee Se-on for details might only make her explode with anger. Asking Guan would probably lead to the same vague answer as before. Rae-hwa tells Guan that she needs to meet Lee Sun-woo tomorrow. Guan agrees with Rae-hwa and says they should go together to see Sun-woo. Meanwhile, Chairman Lee Jung-hwan is watching old videos of his wife and daughter when he gets a call from director Park. He asks Park how things went. Park tells him the plan failed. The chairman is surprised and says Park should have been able to handle it by sending an entire gang of thugs. He asks if Rae-hwa escaped. Park explains that all the people they hired are dead. The chairman is shocked and asks how they died. Park explains to the chairman that, according to the police, there was a fight within the gang. They argued and fought among themselves, which turned into a violent clash. One of the members got so angry that he used an illegal machine gun. The chairman cuts him off and says it's that guy who went wild with the machine gun. Park agrees and says it looks like Gwon I-tae's work. The chairman says that they just called it internal strife within the organization. Park agrees and adds that, from this incident, it seems impossible to use force against desert. Park suggests, though it might be bold, that the chairman should end his relationship with Miss Rae-hwa. The chairman asks Park if he doesn't understand how important Rae-hwa is to him. He says that Rae-hwa is his wife's most beautiful creation, and if she were to leave, it would feel like his wife's presence has completely vanished from the world. The chairman adds that even if there's only a small chance to recover Rae-hwa, he will try. Park says he understands. Guan and Rae-hwa arrive at the place where Rae-hwa is supposed to meet her cousin, Lee Sun-woo. Rae-hwa asks Guan why he followed her and why he changed his car again. Guan explains that since the last car got damaged badly, he bought a sturdier one in case he accidentally hits someone again. Rae-hwa tells him to stop talking about bad luck. As Rae-hwa looks at Guan, she thinks about a boy she saw in her memories and is about to ask him something when her cousin, Sun-woo, calls her name. Sun-woo walks up to Rae-hwa and grabs her hand, but Guan slaps Sun-woo's hand away. Guan asks why Sun-woo is holding someone's hand like that. Sun-woo asks Guan what he's doing and pulls Rae-hwa closer to himself. Rae-hwa wonders if Sun-woo didn't hear anything from Lee Se-on. Rae-hwa tells Sun-woo that he misunderstood the situation and introduces Gwon I-tae as her husband. Sun-woo is surprised. Rae-hwa asks Guan to say hello to Sun-woo, and Guan stretches out his hand to shake Sun-woo's. Rae-hwa then says they should go to the cafe to talk. She tells Guan not to worry because Sun-woo is her cousin and Guan shouldn't think anything strange or be too rude. Guan says he'll try his best as long as Sun-woo doesn't have any strange ideas about Rae-hwa. The three of them go into the cafe. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that even though Guan is sitting at a distance, she notices him fiddling with his sling bag. She worries that there might be a gun inside, and it's making her nervous. Sun-woo says it's been a while since they last met. Rae-hwa agrees and says she's been so busy that she didn't get a chance to greet him properly. Sun-woo adds that even though it's been a few years, she looks just the same, still beautiful and cute. Rae-hwa tells him he hasn't changed either. Sun-woo asks if that's a compliment, and Rae-hwa says it is. She then asks when he got back to Korea. Sun-woo says he arrived the day before and adds that Rae-hwa is the first person he came to see as soon as he got here. Rae-hwa feels a bit pressured after hearing Sun-woo's comments. She asks him why he's saying that. Sun-woo explains that her personality hasn't changed at all, and he came back to Korea because he was surprised to hear that she got married. He had planned to return later, but came back sooner because of the news. He says that her husband is quite unexpected and asks Rae-hwa if she likes someone like Guan. Sun-woo thought she'd prefer someone more calm and quiet, and Rae-hwa agrees. Sun-woo tells Rae-hwa that, from his point of view, she and Guan don't seem to match at all. He asks if she's under any kind of threat. Rae-hwa says she chose Guan herself. Sun-woo then asks if the chairman knows about everything, and Rae-hwa replies that he does, but he opposed the marriage. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that, even though she and Sun-woo are distant relatives, their relationship has always been more like competitors due to Daesan construction. It's normal for her to feel awkward, but Sun-woo has always been kind to her in the past and still is. She wonders if there's a reason behind it and thinks it might be best to just ask him and get it over with. Rae-hwa tells Sun-woo that she has a question. She asks if Lee Se-on has ever been engaged to someone. Sun-woo says that she hasn't been engaged, but he remembers that Se-on almost got married when she was in high school. Rae-hwa feels upset, but Sun-woo adds that the engagement was only mentioned briefly, so the chairman might not know much about it. Before the engagement could be arranged properly, the man died. Rae-hwa asks how the man died, and Sun-woo says that the man was already frail and eventually passed away because of an illness, so the engagement fell through. She asks what kind of illness he had, and Sun-woo replies that he doesn't know. Rae-hwa asks if there were other sons in the family, and Sun-woo says he heard that the man was the only child. Rae-hwa wonders to herself if Lee Se-on might have confused the person who died with Gwon I-tae. Rae-hwa then asks Sun-woo if he knows what happened to the family that Se-on was engaged to. Sun-woo explains that this happened a long time ago, and he was in America at that time, so he was too focused on school to pay much attention to family matters. Rae-hwa says she understands. Sun-woo asks if he should look into it for her and reaches out to touch her hand. Sun-woo says that if finding out about Se-on's engagement can be an excuse to contact Rae-hwa again, it would be a good reason. He asks why she's so interested in Se-on's engagement and adds that she should at least share what she knows so he can help look into it. Rae-hwa tells Sun-woo that his answer is enough. Sun-woo explains that he gets why she might not trust him given the situation with his family, but is still a bit hurt. Rae-hwa apologizes. Sunwoo then asks if she's happy after getting married. She says she is, and he tells her to contact him if anything happens. Sunwoo says that while he was in America, he couldn't stop thinking about Rae-hwa. He wanted to be someone who really suits her, so he worked extra hard. He feels that after everything that happened while they were apart, he shouldn't have left her behind. Rae-hwa tells Sunwoo to let go of her hand. Sunwoo says he can't take it anymore and doesn't want to lose her like this. Rae-hwa pours her juice on his face and tells him to get a grip and let go. Sunwoo apologizes, saying he's sorry and was just lost in thought for a moment. Rae-hwa remembers her stepfather telling her that she was unconsciously copying her mom's painting style. He warned her that it wouldn't be good if people started saying she was just imitating her mother. He said he loved Rae-hwa and didn't want to lose her like he lost Ryu Seoyeon. Then he broke her hand. Rae-hwa gets up to leave, but Sunwoo calls her name. She turns and accidentally bumps into Guan. Guan smiles and says her performance was really touching. He adds that next time, she shouldn't just splash juice on Sunwoo's face but slap him too. Guan then asks Rae-hwa if she was scared when he wasn't around. He tells her that he's been watching from a distance. Rae-hwa asks why he was watching from a distance when he should have been by her side. Before Guan walks towards Sunwoo and Rae-hwa, he thinks about what he sees in Lee Rae-hwa. He has met many odd people in his life, especially in the mercenary world, which is full of nutcases. He has dealt with all sorts of clients, but Lee Rae-hwa is a first. Maybe it's funny because she doesn't look the part but keeps doing crazy things. He finds himself constantly drawn to her, worried and thinking about her. Nowadays, thoughts of Lee Rae-hwa keep getting in the way of his work. He can't figure her out. One minute she's scared of him, the next she's kissing him. Gwon tells Choi that he doesn't care if Sunwoo is Rae-hwa's cousin. Sunwoo should have left him alone. Choi tries to calm Gwon down, saying Sunwoo doesn't seem like the type to cause trouble. Gwon insists that it's always the quiet ones to worry about. Then, Gwon sees Sunwoo holding Rae-hwa's hand. Gwon tells Choi he might end up wrecking another car. Choi urges him to calm down and remember there are people around them. Just then, Gwon sees Rae-hwa splash juice on Sunwoo. Gwon sees the pained look on Rae-hwa's face and wonders if she's remembering something unpleasant. She then bumps into him, and he thinks of all the things he wants to do to her. Gwon tells Rae-hwa that he can turn Sunwoo into a vegetable if she wants. Addressing Sunwoo as dear cousin, Gwon is told by Sunwoo to address him properly. Gwon agrees, calls him Mr. Lee Sunwoo, and tells him to stop tormenting the newlyweds and go home. Sunwoo calls Rae-hwa and tells her there are things he still needs to say. Rae-hwa gets angry and asks if he likes her, reminding him they're cousins and she's married. She says it's not right for him to contact her to meet alone. Sunwoo tries to explain, holding her back, but Gwon steps in. Gwon asks why Sunwoo is acting like this with someone else's wife and planning a confession in front of her husband. He hits Sunwoo's hands and tells him not to touch Rae-hwa again, adding that her hands are precious. On their way home, Gwon asks Rae-hwa to choose between him and her cousin. She chooses him. Gwon then asks if it's okay for him to break Sunwoo's head next time. Rae-hwa says that regardless of what Sunwoo did, he's still the heir of DS Hotel. She asks why Gwon acts like he has no tomorrow. Gwon tells her he plans on living a long life. When Rae-hwa starts to talk, he cuts her off, saying he doesn't do this with just anyone and expects her to understand. Rae-hwa explains that when Sunwoo calls her Rae-hwa, it makes her feel grossed out and fed up. She hates it when the chairman calls her that too. But when Gwon says her name, it feels different because he's different. Gwon stops the car and asks Rae-hwa if she didn't say they should act like nothing happened, yet here she is talking about it again. Rae-hwa asks Gwon what's going on, and he tells her that she keeps looking at him in a way that makes him think she has ideas. He lets it go when she kissed him in shock during her kidnapping, but now he's wondering if she's still scared of him. Rae-hwa admits she is. Gwon then asks if she still wants to kiss him. They start kissing, but Rae-hwa tries to pull away. Gwon notices and asks if something's wrong. He mentions that married couples can have sex, and Rae-hwa agrees but says doing it there feels a bit awkward. Gwon picks her up and carries her upstairs. Once they're alone, they continue making out passionately. Rae-hwa tells her mom that she's done with painting and can't continue. She says her mom should stop pushing her because she just can't do it anymore. Her mom insists she should keep going, saying it's such a waste of her talent. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she always knew something was wrong. Neither she nor her mom can find happiness this way, and no matter how much she regrets it, she can't change the past. Rae-hwa tells her mom she wishes she could die and begs her to do so. Her mom says she wishes Rae-hwa could keep painting and not give up. She says it would be tragic to waste Rae-hwa's talent, calling her little flower. Then Rae-hwa wakes up. Rae-hwa wonders what kind of dream that was. She remembers having arguments with her mom before, but did they ever get so intense? Did she really hate painting like that? Her hands feel the urge to hold a brush, and if she doesn't, it feels wrong. She questions if it was just a dream. She has only recently started painting again, and with everything going on, maybe it was just a strange dream. Guan then says that she's awake. Guan asks Rae-hwa how things are down there and if everything is okay. He tells her that now that she's awake, she should spread her legs. She looks scared, and he tells her not to look so fed up. He explains that he just wants to apply some ointment. Reluctantly, she agrees. Guan says he already cleaned and put some medicine on it after they were done, but it's still red and swollen. Rae-hwa asks if it's always like this with warm lube. Guan says it might be because her skin is thin and sensitive. He threw away the lube because using it again could be dangerous for her. He says he's going to apply the medicine inside, so she should bear with him. He applies the ointment, and Rae-hwa asks if he wants to do this right after she wakes up. Guan says he's just applying medication and asks why she's acting like this. He adds that it seems like his darling has become a complete pervert. He tells her that he's done now. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she got tricked again and hasn't fully woken up. At this rate, she might actually die from all the intimacy, or maybe from the pleasure of it. Kang Myok then says that Chairman Lee Jung-hwan has decided to step away from the business and leave the management to professionals. He wants to pass on all his wealth to Rae-hwa and hand over the management to someone else. She asks her husband, Lee Hang-soo, chairman of DS Hotel, if it's fair. She says she can't stand to see it, especially with the Lee family eagerly watching. They have son Woo, who's been trained in management, so she wonders why Chairman Lee Jung-hwan would make such a decision. She urges her husband to say something, claiming it's for Daesan's sake. Her husband says he understands. Kang Myok then mentions that she has come up with a plan, and the chance has just arrived. She tells him that Director Park, who worked under the chairman, has reached out. Their hotel once hosted Ryu Seoyeon's exhibit, and now a TV station wants to interview the staff from back then, including Lee Rae-hwa. She starts explaining this to Lee Hang-soo when Sunwoo interrupts. He tells her that if they need anything from him, she should let him know, and then he leaves with Seon. Seon tells Sunwoo she heard he went straight to see Rae-hwa as soon as he got to Korea. Sunwoo confirms that he did. Seon asks why he didn't call her first. He questions if she's still bothering Rae-hwa. Seon admits she did a bit, but she can't anymore because of Gwon I-tae. She blames Rae-hwa for always taking what's hers. She was almost engaged to Gwon, but Rae-hwa ended up with him instead. Sunwoo asks Seon if she wants Rae-hwa out of the picture so she can marry Gwon. Seon says yes. He then asks if she can handle being pregnant with Gwon I-tae's child. He tells her to let him know if she's interested, and he'll see what he can do. Choi asks Rae-hwa if the drawing is a draft for Gwon I-tae's portrait. He says it looks great and even has a snake that resembles Gwon's tattoo. Rae-hwa says she drew inspiration from Gwon. She then asks where Gwon is. Choi replies that he should be arriving soon and mentions that May is already there. He says he'll go check if she's inside. Rae-hwa is meeting Schmidt and Mai, the main members of Desert, for the first time, so she feels a bit nervous. Suddenly, someone greets her and says she looks like a jewel. Rae-hwa is surprised as the person jumps over a small gate and introduces herself as May. Choi tells May that if she greets people like that, she might get reported. He also tells her to stop spending all her time on her computer and go meet people. Rae-hwa asks if May is from Desert. May confirms she is and says that she and Schmidt will be joining the team to protect Rae-hwa. Rae-hwa thinks that May must be the Thai person who speaks Korean that Gwon mentioned. Choi then asks May why she came alone and where Schmidt is. May replies that Schmidt will be there soon because he has something to discuss with Guan. Guan tells Schmidt that not everyone enjoys normal conversations. He's referring to a man he's beating up and adds that he told Schmidt not to bring that kind of trouble to Korea. Guan then asks why Schmidt called him there, saying it can't just be to deal with these easy guys. Schmidt explains that his parents contacted him. Guan responds that he doesn't have any parents. Schmidt says he'll fix that and adds that people related to Guan by blood reached out to him. They're asking about Guan's marriage and know about Rae-hwa. Schmidt tells Guan that he can't avoid his family forever, especially if he wants to stay with Rae-hwa in Korea. Eventually, he will have to deal with them. Schmidt asks if Rae-hwa is worth all that trouble, even if it means facing everything Guan has hated his whole life. He wonders what if she asks for more from him, like his heart. Schmidt was hoping Rae-hwa would choose to go to Macao, but he doesn't understand why he's stuck in Korea because of her. Korea broke him, and he questions if he really likes Korea enough to risk everything for it. Guan simply says he can't leave Rae-hwa alone. Schmidt says he understands and asks if Guan has been getting enough sleep lately. Guan replies that he sleeps well when he's with Rae-hwa and doesn't have nightmares. Since they're in Korea, he figured he might as well settle things with his family once and for all. He says they're not getting any younger and he should sort things out with his parents before they pass away. Guan admits he doesn't really understand why they're so focused on him, given that he killed their son. Schmidt introduces himself to Rae-hwa as the CEO of Desert. Guan adds that nobody uses their real name, so Schmidt put that name on his business card. He says it's a noble name but doesn't quite fit the industry, so she should feel free to call him Schmidt. Schmidt then tells Rae-hwa that she can rest easy now because their team of 4 has never failed a mission. Although it's the first time they're protecting just one person, they're up to the task. Rae-hwa thanks him and says she appreciates it. Later, Rae-hwa is in the studio painting and thinks that Schmidt is right. Since the team of 4 came together, everything has been smooth and peaceful. She looks at the food and notices that Guan has been cooking lately. She's looking forward to the dinner he'll make that night. Suddenly, she gets a text from Chairman Lee Jung-hwan saying he's the only one who can protect her. She's shocked by the message and then receives a call from Sun-woo. Sun-woo tells Rae-hwa to stay away from the TV and the internet for a while and not to go outside. He says the headlines are all about the tragic genius painter, Ryu Seoyeon's life and death. May sees the report and calls it all nonsense. The reporter talks about a famous painting by Ryu Seoyeon called Under the Summer Sun, which is known for its bold colors and expressive style. The painting marked Seoyeon's return to art after a long slump. However, at the peak of her comeback, she made a tragic decision. The report promises to explore the mysterious circumstances surrounding her death. The reporter continues, saying that Ryu Seoyeon's daughter, Lee Rae-hwa, is known for having a similar style to her mother's. It's said they often argued about their shared style. On the day of Seoyeon's death, her body was found with Rae-hwa, who then suffered severe mental trauma and had to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital for 2 years of treatment. May notes that they even published Rae-hwa's name and photo. She checks online and sees that public opinion is turning against Rae-hwa, painting her as a villain who copied and killed her own mother. May calls Guan, asking what they should do about the situation and what will happen to Rae-hwa. She suggests terrorizing the broadcast station. Guan tells her to call Schmidt and Choi and set up a meeting in 3 minutes. He says they need to stop the news and that she should just gather those two while he sorts everything out. Rae-hwa calls Chairman Lee Jung-hwan. He mentions that it's the first time she's called him and asks if she liked his gift. Rae-hwa tells him that she'll never return it, no matter what he does. Chairman Lee says she's always been stubborn, both with her paintings and her marriage. He then asks about his son-in-law, saying everyone is curious about him. Rae-hwa replies that she'll visit his house the next day so they can all have dinner together. Chairman Lee agrees and says he'll go home early. Rae-hwa messes up her painting and decides to call Guan to end their contract. He's surprised when she tells him they should end it that day. She says she's breaking the contract on her own, so he doesn't have to give her a refund. She'll send the remaining $1 billion right away and thanks him for everything so far. Guan asks where she's going, especially since she's even taken off her ring. She notices the CCTV camera and thinks he can see her. Rae-hwa says she's going to her family and the chairman. She explains that it was a family issue that made her run away in the first place. Guan tells her to stop talking nonsense and stay home. Rae-hwa asks him to open the door, but he refuses. Rae-hwa tells Guan that ending the contract will only make things more complicated. Guan asks why she wants to end it. She explains it's because he can't protect her, and she's all over the news. The longer she waits, the worse it will get. She says there's no reason to keep the contract, so he should just take her money and leave. Guan asks who said he can't protect her and tells her to wait for him. He says he's coming and warns her not to go outside the house. Guan sees Rae-hwa crying in front of the door. She tells him that the truth is she isn't okay. Sometimes she hears voices and has terrible nightmares where she hears her mom's voice. She acted like nothing was wrong because she didn't want to go back to the psychiatric hospital or end up hanging herself like her mom. She didn't understand why she's been holding on for so long. She feels she should have died like her mom a long time ago. Everyone would have been better off if she had died that day in the studio, but the truth is she's scared of dying. She wants to live and keep painting. Rae-hwa tells Guan that she really loved flowers, and then she bursts into tears. Guan begs her not to cry, saying he doesn't know what to do when she's crying. Rae-hwa eventually stops crying, and they sit down on the couch together. She apologizes to Guan, and he asks why she's apologizing. She says it's because she said harsh things earlier. Guan asks what harsh things she's talking about. She says she's sorry for yelling and upsetting him. Guan says she said something worse than that. She said he couldn't protect her, which hurt his pride. He makes a bet with her, saying that he's never failed a mission before. He promised to protect her, and he will. He'll sort things out. Rae-hwa tells Guan that she knows he can protect her, but she's worried that the chairman will do the same things to him as he did to her. She doesn't want that to happen, and she wants to protect him too. Rae-hwa has always been focused on herself, living alone in her small, narrow world. It felt natural until one day Gwon I-tae barged in, got her attention, and made her anxious. He made her painfully aware of him. She wishes everything had stopped when his presence was new and exciting. If they had cut ties back then, they wouldn't be in this situation now. She's scared he might get hurt, and just like he wants to protect her, she wants to protect him too. She finds herself wanting to protect him with all her heart, even though he's a tough man that nobody can bring down. Rae-hwa tells Guan they should end the contract and thanks him for everything he's done so far. Guan says it's the first time someone has said they'd protect him, and it feels pretty good. Rae-hwa says it's serious and asks if he wants to be on TV too. Guan mentions she was in a documentary and jokes that he'll be on the 9 o'clock news and become as famous as she is. She calls him, and he answers. She tells him not to be stubborn, because if the chairman says he'll handle it, he will. Guan says he also keeps his word. Rae-hwa tells him not to be stubborn with his nonsensical bravery and to end the contract. Guan kisses her and says he can solve the issue, but she needs to promise him something. There's something he hasn't told her, something he was going to say after she left him. To fix things, he needs to pick up what he abandoned. He just hopes she will treat him the same way later as she does now. After Gwon I-tae went to South Korea, rumors started flying around the military companies that there might be a war with North Korea. That's how solid Desert's reputation was as a mercenary group that never failed. In reality, the $2 billion Lee Rae-hwa offered was ridiculously low, but everyone agreed to go to Korea without any complaints because of Gwon's orders. Gwon had a fake marriage, started showing a more human side for the first time, and began to change, saying he was ready to reveal the secrets he had kept hidden all his life because of Lee Rae-hwa. Gwon apologizes to his team. Choi comments that if Gwon is going back to his family, it means he won't be able to do mercenary work anymore. May says she didn't expect Gwon to go to Korea. Gwon suggests they keep Rae-hwa's security the same and take on one more job. Schmidt asks what kind of job he has in mind, wondering what else they need to do there. Gwon says he needs their help one last time for what's coming up. He plans to take over Daesan construction. One of the guards tells Chairman Lee Jung-hwan that all the articles he wanted taken down are being removed. The chairman is surprised when he sees the news. It says that the Ilwon group has officially recognized an illegitimate child, and according to the statement, The new successor of the I-1 Group is Mr. Gwon I-tae. The I-1 Group leads the market with cutting-edge technology, from advanced semiconductors and smartphone devices to electric vehicles with AI. However, I-1 is known for its outdated management style. They stubbornly stick to a family-run system that's out of touch with the times. The company is famous for trying everything from alternative therapies and private treatments to shamanic rituals to ensure a successful succession. Just when everyone thought the family management system would end after losing their only son to a genetic disease, rumors start spreading that the chairman of I-1 had an illegitimate child. That child is Gwon I-tae. Rae-hwa sees the news and notices that most of the articles about her have been taken down. Now, the news is mostly about I-1 and Gwon. She calls Choi and says she wants to go out but can't go alone. She asks if he can come with her. Instead, Schmidt answers and asks why she wants to go out. Rae-hwa says she has something she needs to do. Rae-hwa arrives at the KSC broadcasting station with May, Choi, and Schmidt as her guards. She tells the receptionist that she wants to see the director of the station. She asks the receptionist to let the director know that Lee Rae-hwa from Daesan Construction is here. Rae-hwa is talking with the director of the station. She asks if he thinks she's lost her mind, and now he's surprised to see she's perfectly sane. The director says he's just surprised she came in person. Rae-hwa says she thinks he only showed one side of the story, which is why she's there to suggest something. She proposes a story that will get better ratings and more buzz than just a documentary. She offers to give him an exclusive interview. She adds that if he's not interested, she'll go somewhere else. The director says it's not that he's not interested, but Rae-hwa tells him not to worry about any pressure from Daesan, there won't be any. She asks if he'll do the broadcast. Gwon arrives at the zero-sum game, and his father welcomes him, saying they've missed him. Gwon asks if they haven't been watching him all the time. His father says it makes a world of difference when Gwon contacts them himself, and is glad to have him back. Gwon says he's married now and has his own family, so even if he inherits the position, he won't live in the main house. Gwon's stepmom asks how he could make such a big decision without telling them. His dad says he's been wanting to talk about it, and he knows Gwon came back because of that girl. He asks if Gwon is sure about having a child with her, considering mental illness runs in her family. Gwon says he's already dealing with mental illness himself. His dad says that's even more reason to marry someone who is completely healthy. He reminds Gwon that he is I-1's last hope. The insistence on direct succession comes from an obsession linked to a genetic disease. The first chairman of I-1 dreamed of becoming a dragon, and as I-1 grew into a leading conglomerate in South Korea, they passed down the business and the genetic disease to their children and then their grandchildren. This obsession was partly because the illness was seen as part of the family's legacy, with the belief that the dragon's energy, which could bring wealth and honor, was also inherited. This thinking was quite irrational but was hard to deny based on the results they saw. In fact, when non-direct relatives were put in charge of separate companies, they quickly ran them into the ground. Since then, the chairman of I-1 has become more affectionate, and Gwon's stepmom can no longer mistreat him. Gwon asks his dad what exactly he wants him to do, whether he should get a divorce. His dad says yes. Gwon tells his dad not to worry because he plans to divorce her. His dad is surprised that Gwon, who came back for this woman, is now planning to divorce her. Gwon says he can't bring her into that kind of family. He agrees to marry someone his dad approves of, but he has one condition: his dad must not interfere with what he needs to do for the next year. His dad agrees and says that the glory of I-1 must continue through direct succession, and he believes the illness will be cured when Gwon takes over. As Gwon stands to leave, his stepmom stops him and says the company should be Hyun's and that Gwon took everything from her son. Gwon tells her to get her facts straight: a deceased son can't become the head of the company. Rae-hwa thanks Choi and notices Gwon. She thinks to herself that she wanted to hug him the next time she saw him. She walks up to him and asks why he did what he did. Gwon looks confused and asks what she means. Rae-hwa says he revealed his secret to the world for her, taking on her request for just $2 billion. Gwon wonders why he did it and kisses her. He says he's curious about why he did it too. Rae-hwa says they should start heading home. When they get home, Rae-hwa sees Gwon in the atelier and asks what he's doing there. He says he's looking at the painting, which should have been a great one. He asks why she ripped it. Rae-hwa explains that she decided to stop painting after Chairman Lee Jung-hwan called. Guan says it's harsh for her to tear up something like that. Rae-hwa points out that it wasn't even his portrait, but she finally agrees to fix it. Guan says she tore it up badly and asks if she'll paint him again. He hands her the brush and tells her to do it right this time. Rae-hwa says she'll redo it and make it even better. Guan grabs Rae-hwa and tells her she looks beautiful while painting. He says he'd love to try painting her if she's okay with it. He starts painting on her body, and she tells him to stop messing around with the brush. Guan says that even when she's angry or pushing him away, she's still really pretty. He asks why he always finds her so attractive. They kiss and become intimate. After they're done, Guan takes Rae-hwa to the bathtub. She falls asleep, and he asks her why she seems to have forgotten about him. He wonders if it's because of Ryu-seoyeon. In a flashback, Guan thinks about how he was not the only one wandering the streets, beaten up and with nowhere to go in the middle of summer. Rae-hwa introduces herself as Skint. He's confused, so she tells him he can check her pockets, and he won't find anything there. Back in the present, Rae-hwa starts shaking in the bathtub. Guan asks if she's awake, and she says yes, the water has gone cold. He tells her he wanted to ask her something when she woke up. She tells him to go ahead. He asks if she went to the psychiatric hospital because of Lee Jung-hwan. She confirms that she did, saying they wouldn't treat her fingers unless she went in. Rae-hwa says she has something to ask too. She wonders if Guan made a bet with Chairman Lee Jung-hwan. He says it's quick. She admits she's been meaning to ask but is nervous, and asks if he won the bet. He says not yet but he will, and asks if she trusts him. She says she does, and then asks if he trusts her. He says he does. Seon watches Rae-hwa's interview on TV and is annoyed. She mutters that Rae-hwa is crazy and should be locked up in some remote mental hospital for life. She wonders why Rae-hwa is even doing interviews. Since seeing the teasers about Rae-hwa revealing the truth, Seon thinks her mom has been looking terrible and wonders what Rae-hwa is up to. The interviewer greets Rae-hwa and thanks her for coming, knowing it must have been a hard choice. He mentions there's been a lot of talk about her copying Ryu-seoyeon and asks what she thinks about that. Rae-hwa admits her style is similar because she learned from her mother but says it's definitely different. When he asks how it's different, she says it's hard to explain and suggests he should see it for himself. She then announces that she'll be holding an exhibition of her original paintings at the DS Hotel. Seon gets really angry and calls Sun-woo. She asks if he saw Rae-hwa's interview. Sun-woo tells her to calm down and reminds her about what they discussed. Seon says she remembers and agrees to get pregnant for Gwon I-tae. Rae-hwa calls Kang Myok and asks if her mom's exhibition was good for DS Hotel in the past. Kang Myok asks if Rae-hwa wants something in return. Rae-hwa says she wants to hold an exhibition and thinks it would be better to do it at the DS Hotel rather than somewhere else. She thinks to herself that even though DS Hotel is struggling right now, they made a lot of money from her mom's exhibition before. A smart businessman wouldn't let personal feelings get in the way of making money. Rae-hwa asks what Kang Myok thinks. Kang Myok says her secretary will get in touch with Rae-hwa. Rae-hwa and Schmidt are talking, and she finds walking with Schmidt a bit awkward compared to Choi and May. A car pulls up, and the lady inside asks to speak with Rae-hwa. Rae-hwa asks who she is, and Schmidt says it's Gwon's stepmom. Rae-hwa decides she doesn't want to talk to her. Gwon's stepmom is surprised that Rae-hwa turned her down. Rae-hwa says it's quite rude to show up without any notice and start giving orders. She adds that it would have been better if the stepmom had shown some manners. Gwon's stepmom replies that she saw Rae-hwa on TV and should have known she was fearless. Rae-hwa thanks her for the compliment and asks where she wants to talk. She says she can make time. Gwon's stepmom says the car is ready, so they can go and talk at her home. Rae-hwa agrees and says she'll bring her bodyguard too. Schmidt and Rae-hwa get into the car. He thanks her for supporting them. Rae-hwa says she'll always be on their side but asks if he knew the stepmom before. Schmidt explains that Il-won once asked Desert to audit Gwon I-tae. It was an old case that's already been settled, but he still passes along bits of information about Gwon when it's needed. He says that if he refused, They would have used another company anyway. Schmidt tells Rae-hwa that Guan is on his way, so she shouldn't worry too much. He also hopes she can trust Guan no matter what his stepmom says. They arrive at the house, and Guan's stepmom says the chairman of I-1 is out for a bit and won't be back until they're done, so they shouldn't worry. She then asks if Rae-hwa knows her family is against their marriage. Rae-hwa says yes. Guan's stepmom explains that she has her own reasons for opposing it. She questions why a lovely lady like Rae-hwa would want such a marriage and says that Guan has always been strange since he was little. She adds that Rae-hwa would be creeped out if she knew the truth. She accuses Guan of killing her son, Hyun, who spent his life in and out of hospitals and died miserably. Now, Guan, the murderer, is taking over the I-1 group, marrying the woman he loves, and taking everything her son should have had. She asks how Rae-hwa can live as if nothing happened and if she understands why she's acting this way. When Rae-hwa doesn't answer, Guan's stepmom suddenly attacks her with a cup of coffee. Schmidt asks Rae-hwa if she's okay while holding back Guan's stepmom. She tells him to let her go. Someone behind Rae-hwa asks why she's taking out her anger on innocent people when she has others to blame. It's Guan. Guan's stepmom tells Schmidt to let her go so she can attack Guan, who she calls the person who killed her son. Suddenly, Rae-hwa splashes water on her face and tells her to calm down, suggesting she might need medical attention. She adds that she should bring direct evidence that her husband killed her son. Guan says he's touched that Rae-hwa is supporting him despite being called a murderer. Rae-hwa says they should leave, and Guan agrees. Meanwhile, Guan's stepmom tells Schmidt to let her go. They all go outside, and Schmidt says he needs to change his clothes first. Rae-hwa apologizes for dragging him into that situation because of her. Schmidt says there's no need to apologize and that, thanks to her, everything ended sooner than he expected. He'll borrow some clothes from the employees, so they should wait. Guan says they can smoke while they wait. He asks Rae-hwa if she wants to smoke, and she reminds him that she doesn't smoke. He says it'll smell, so they should stand apart a bit. She says it's fine and tells him he looks like a thug. He replies that she should hand over the money, and he'll check her pockets. She thinks to herself that this feels familiar. Guan says that he's actually a bastard, but he wasn't born from the chairman's affair. He asks Rae-hwa if she's ever heard of a talisman child. He explains that he served that role. A talisman's child was what he was for his sickly brother. The I-1 group has an hereditary disease that causes paralysis. Guan Hyun's symptoms started when he was a child and continued despite the family's huge spending on medical treatment. Eventually, the family consulted a shaman who advised them to bring in a scapegoat from outside the family. So, Gwon Ik-mun and Cha Mi-young decided to get a talisman's child. They chose young, healthy, beautiful, and intelligent women who could keep a secret for artificial insemination, and that's how they had Gwon I-tae. His biological mother was supposed to give him to I-1 but changed her mind and ran away with him instead. Gwon vaguely remembers being about 5 years old when his biological mother got caught, and that's when he was taken to the I-1 family. He hasn't seen his biological mother since then. Surprisingly, after Gwon I-tae was brought in, Hyun's condition started to improve quickly. It might have been a coincidence, but it made the chairman become obsessed with superstitions. Gwon I-tae says that besides his brother getting better, there was another incident. Rae-hwa asks what it is, and he says that he was kidnapped instead of his brother. In a flashback, Hyun and Gwon I-tae are together. Hyun calls Gwon I-tae a name and tells him to go inside because their mom called. Gwon I-tae runs to their mom and tells her that he smeared something dirty on him. Their mom says Gwon I-tae should go inside and wash himself. One day, as Gwon I-tae is stepping outside to run an errand for Hyun, he gets kidnapped. His eyes meet Hyun's for a brief moment. The room is so hot and stuffy with no fan, and even though he's scared, he can't shiver from the heat. He spends days locked up, feeling weak and passing out from exhaustion. At night, a couple of guys come by and throw him a piece of bread and a bottle of water. He thinks that since Hyun saw him being taken, the police should have already come looking for him. But as the days go by and the sun keeps rising and setting, nothing changes. One of the kidnappers gets angry and kicks him, saying it's been a month and they haven't received any response from the kid. The other kidnapper replies that if the boy dies, they won't get any money, and adds that they aren't getting any money even though the boy is close to dying. Gwon I-tae thinks to himself that it's been a month and no one has come to save him. He tells himself he won't die in that place. In the corner of the old warehouse, there's a tiny crack in the wall. He finds a shard of broken glass and starts digging at the ground. After several days of heavy rain, the softened soil washes away and widens the crack. He wonders how much time has passed. After being so thin from a month of poor nutrition, he's finally able to squeeze through the small hole. Gwon I-tae wanders through the dark streets until he makes it home. But when he finally returns to the place he so desperately wanted to come back to, he realizes something. He walks in and hears laughter coming from the dining table. He sees that the place is perfect without him. His stepmom is praising Hyun and then mentions how disappointing it is what happened to Gwon I-tae. She says it's tough to find a suitable donor, but since the test results were good, probably because he's a blood relative, it was reassuring to think of him as a backup organ for Hyun. Gwon I-tae thinks to himself that all the tests he went through were for organ transplants. His dad confirms that's true but adds that they can't negotiate with criminals. He hears them enjoying their dinner, and it makes him feel sick. He runs outside, realizing that they didn't despise him just because he was an illegitimate child, they despised him because he was nothing more than a potential organ donor. Gwon I-tae grabs a golf club and smashes it through the window. He starts eating the food and greets his parents, who are shocked to see him. He says he was kidnapped for over a month, and no one came to rescue him, so he had to escape by himself. It was summer, and while he could handle the beatings, the heat was nearly unbearable. He was starved, beaten, and cursed daily, which became just a normal part of his life. He asks Rae-hwa if she's bored and suggests they change the topic. She asks if he always carries a gun. He says he does, and she asks him to give it to her. She says she wants to use it on Cha Myung and Gwon I-tae. She insists he hands it over, and she adds that his anger shows it wasn't a waste of time. He says he's flattered. Rae-hwa tells him she's serious, but he pulls her close and tells her to kiss him. He's surprised by his own reaction and wonders if they should have been intimate, or can they? She asks what he's talking about, and he says he's not doing it outside, but if she wants to, he can try. She just tells him to kiss her, and they share a kiss. As they drive home, Rae-hwa notices it's summer and wonders what will happen once the contract ends. She looks at Guan, who notices and asks if she wants to say something. She says she doesn't. He then asks if she wants to kiss him, but she says it's nothing. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that once the contract is over, Guan might return to his dangerous life. Rae-hwa thinks that if Guan were poor, he might have signed a lifetime deal for money. But since he's the heir to a huge fortune, he probably wouldn't. A knock on the door interrupts her thoughts. Schmidt walks in and says that Lu Jin from Macao sent a painting. She paid for a new painting and even added a rental fee. It looks like Rae-hwa has gained a long-time fan. Rae-hwa opens the package and sees it's the last painting she did before her hand was injured. Schmidt mentions he has something he wants to ask. Rae-hwa tells him he can go ahead. Schmidt asks if she thinks her memories are intact. She wonders if he's asking if she remembers the day her life was taken. People doubt it, but she does remember. Schmidt clarifies that he's asking if she fully remembers what happened right before Ryu Seoyeon died. He tells her to think about it. As she tries to recall, her head starts spinning. She asks what's happening to her, and Schmidt asks if she's okay. Guan holds Rae-hwa and tells Schmidt to explain what's going on. Schmidt says he was just asking something out of curiosity. Guan asks if Schmidt feels like smacking him and if he can do it. Rae-hwa tells Guan to stop and says she wants to lie down. Guan takes her upstairs and puts her on his bed to rest until she feels better. Rae-hwa asks Guan if her memory is weird. He reassures her that she's perfectly normal and tells her not to worry about nonsense. She asks him to lie down with her. Guan says it's still bright outside, but she asks what he's thinking about. He tells her to sleep a bit, and he'll wake her up later. She falls asleep. Guan goes to Schmidt and reminds him that he said they shouldn't ask about Rae-hwa's memories because it might be linked to trauma. Schmidt replies that he's put his life on the line for her, so a little pressure should be fine. Guan says they didn't ask her to do that, so Schmidt shouldn't push her. Schmidt answers that coddling her isn't the answer and believes she's tough enough to handle it. Schmidt tells Guan that Choi met someone who recently retired from Lee Young-won's house. Based on what Choi found, May worked hard to get more information, and apparently, this person has recorded everything about Ryu Seoyeon without her knowing, even using surveillance cameras around the house. Guan asks if that means there's a record that could be used instead of relying on Rae-hwa's memories. Schmidt says yes. Lee Jung-hwan uses an old device that isn't connected to any network to view the recordings. Guan asks if they can bribe someone to install equipment to access these records. Schmidt says that's not possible because only Chairman Lee Jung-hwan and his secretary can access them, and Lee Jung-hwan even supervises the cleaning process. Guan thinks that Lee Young-won's paranoia might be his weak spot and decides he'll need to go there. Schmidt asks if Guan will have time for this, with his duties at Ilwon, tracking down corruption at Daesan Construction, and protecting Rae-hwa. Guan says he'll handle it and that they should prepare for a heist soon. He then asks Schmidt if there's been anything unusual with Rae-hwa lately and shows him photos on his phone that might be useful. Rae-hwa starts missing Guan because he's been so busy, so she decides to call him. But a lady answers the phone by mistake. It's Seon, and she tells Rae-hwa that Guan is busy. Rae-hwa asks why Seon answered Guan's phone, and Seon replies that they are together. Rae-hwa tells Seon to pass the phone to Guan, but Seon says that Guan is busy and will call her back later. Rae-hwa thinks she should stay calm. It's not the first time Seon has done this. They might just be together, and she shouldn't jump to conclusions from one phone call. But Rae-hwa still calls May and asks where Guan is. May says Guan must be working, and Rae-hwa adds that he's with Seon. May tries to explain, but Rae-hwa tells her to meet her where Guan is. An hour earlier, Seon tells Sun-woo that he can't contact Guan. She thinks to herself that she has already told everyone she's marrying into an impressive family, so she can't delay things any longer. When Guan arrives, both Seon and Sun-woo welcome him. Guan takes off his tie, and Seon asks if he wants anything. He says he wants iced chocolate, so they give him a glass. Seon thinks to herself that Guan looks stylish, but is actually a complete gangster. He greets them, and Sun-woo says he didn't realize Guan was from Ilwon Group. Guan responds that Sun-woo is very polite. Guan thought they might start fighting again since they had a brawl the last time they met. But Sun-woo says they're actually interested in working with him. Guan asks if there's something valuable in this collaboration. Sun-woo mentions that Guan has been looking into Daesan Construction lately and that his father has significant shares there. This could be crucial in any management dispute. Guan is surprised and asks if Sun-woo's mother knows about this. Sun-woo confirms she does. Guan then asks if Kang Myok is willing to cooperate, knowing it won't come for free. He wants to know what they want in return. Before Sun-woo can answer, Guan suddenly passes out. Sun-woo thinks to himself that the drug they used is popular in the latest clubs and acts quickly, making it hard to trace. He invites someone to help take Guan upstairs. Seon tells Sun-woo they need to take the pictures quickly because she's scared. She wonders if she should lie beside Guan and kiss him like couples do. Just then, Guan's phone starts ringing, showing Looney Beauty on the caller ID. Seon asks who that is, and Sun-woo tells her to show him the number. Seeing that it's Rae-hwa's number, Sun-woo tells Seon not to answer. Seon hesitates but accidentally picks up the call. Seon tells Rae-hwa that Guan is busy and then hangs up. She starts laughing. Just as they are about to take the pictures, Guan wakes up. He asks if they haven't done the bad stuff yet and comments that it's clear they've been raised well. Seon and Sun-woo start shaking, and Seon says her head is spinning. Sun-woo asks how Guan drugged them, but Guan says it's a trade secret and that it's time for them to pass out. He tells them to look forward to what happens while they sleep. In a flashback, the day before the incident, Guan offers a man a lot of money, 10 times what Seon and Sun-woo offered. He also gives him a mild drug that only makes people pass out for 10 minutes. Presently, Choi tells Guan that he's in big trouble because Rae-hwa is on her way. Guan asks why she's coming. Choi explains that earlier, while Guan was knocked out, Rae-hwa called his phone, and Seon answered. This stirred things up a bit. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that May told her Guan was supposed to meet 2 people and that Choi was supposed to handle things, so there shouldn't be any major issues. But she knows Seon will do anything to make her life harder. Seon has been fixated on Rae-hwa for a really long time. She's shown her admiration, envy, and resentment pretty openly. She even used to copy everything about Rae-hwa, her clothes, favorite foods, and little habits. It was kind of creepy seeing Seon stubbornly follow Rae-hwa around, wearing outfits that didn't even fit her smaller frame. After she stopped doing that, her obsession just got worse. Now, she's desperate to take everything from Rae-hwa. The thing she wants the most is Rae-hwa's title as the only daughter of Daesan Construction. Seon even spies on Rae-hwa to try and get on the chairman's good side. Rae-hwa thinks Seon is aiming for Gwon I-tae because he's her husband and she wants to steal him away. Rae-hwa rushes into the room and sees Gwon I-tae lying on the floor. She asks if he's okay and then turns to Choi, asking where Sunwoo and Seon are. Choi says they're still in the room where the negotiation took place and that he brought I-tae to another room. Rae-hwa tells Choi to wait because she thinks I-tae needs to go to the hospital. Choi apologizes but says there's nothing he can do to help. Rae-hwa asks what he means by that. She turns to Gwon I-tae, asking if what Choi said is true, how serious it is, and what they did to him. Gwon I-tae explains that he thinks Seon wanted to have his baby. He knew Sunwoo had connections with the hospital directors for artificial insemination, and they tried to collect his semen to make Seon pregnant. Rae-hwa thinks he's joking, but he says with Ilwon's obsession with bloodlines, if the chairman of Ilwon finds out that his bloodline is involved, he'll make Seon his daughter-in-law right away. Rae-hwa asks if they gave Gwon I-tae something like an aphrodisiac. Gwon I-tae thinks they might have. He's not sure what to do because he's tried to calm down, but it feels like he's about to lose control. He's thinking that maybe it's working and that this whole situation might turn out to be interesting. He was planning to complain about what Seon and Sunwoo did to him to make Rae-hwa angry on his behalf, but now this mix-up could be a bit of fun. Rae-hwa tells Gwon to lie down and says she'll take care of things. They end up together several times. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she usually blacks out after being intimate with Gwon, so she didn't realize he always takes the time to clean her up thoroughly. Right now, they're in the bathtub together. Gwon tells Rae-hwa he was planning to divorce her after their contract ends for her own safety. She says she doesn't want that. He asks her why. Rae-hwa replies that she doesn't care if it's dangerous, she wants to be with him. Gwon says he'll think about it. In a meeting with May, Choi, Schmidt, and Gwon, Rae-hwa talks about Daesan's new pre-palace in the city. She says it looks perfect and will be a huge success when the news gets out. She mentions that there's some buzz about the design from the construction site. They've noticed that the apartment plans seem to have some issues, specifically that there aren't enough vertical supports for the floor slabs. Choi adds that if those rooms are missing supports, the whole building could collapse at any time. May mentions that there's been a steady stream of complaints about materials falling onto nearby shops. The company just pays the fines and doesn't bother to fix the issues. Choi points out that Lee Sunwoo is set to join Daesan Construction, so he's a useful pawn. Plus, the siblings have provided some good information this time. May calls Gwon and asks if he's been listening. He says he has and that they should go ahead with the pre-palace. She tells him to speak up if there's any problem. He replies that there's no problem, but Lee Rae-hwa is acting a bit strange. May says Rae-hwa has always been odd. Gwon clarifies that's not what he means. Schmidt asks if Rae-hwa's condition has worsened. Gwon says it's not that, it's just that Rae-hwa has been treating him unusually. Lately, whenever she makes a meal, she only serves plain rice in cold water. Gwon says he doesn't mind what Rae-hwa is doing, but is worried she might not be eating properly. Choi asks if he did something bad to her. Gwon says he doesn't think so. He tells Schmidt that since that day, never mind. He says they should go over the details about the pre-palace again. May says she's trying to contact the site manager to gather more information. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that the number of pieces for the exhibition is almost set, but the main piece is still unfinished. It's supposed to be a painting of Gwon I-tae. She wanted to observe him while she painted it, but right now, there are two reasons why Gwon I-tae is really terrible. In a flashback from a few days ago, Schmidt tells Rae-hwa that it's ultimately up to Gwon to decide, but they hope he'll return to the red zone once his contract with her ends. If he doesn't come back, Desert will practically fall apart since he's a key member. Schmidt then asks Rae-hwa if she wants to continue her marriage after the contract ends. He thinks Guan will bring up divorce once the contract is over. Schmidt explains that Guan isn't making this choice for the team, he's just someone who had no choice from the start. Presently, Rae-hwa thinks to herself that there are two main things troubling her. One is that Gwon I-tae actually mentioned divorce, just like Schmidt said. The other is that he's already imagined a future without her, but she hasn't even pictured a future with Gwon I-tae yet. Guan knocks on the door and calls out to Rae-hwa. He says he needs to talk to her. She replies that she's busy. He insists it's important and about her request, so she should just listen for a moment even if she's busy. She opens the door. Guan tells her he wants to go and steal something tomorrow. Rae-hwa asks what it is. Guan says he plans to steal her memories from Lee Jung-hwan. He asks if she knows that Lee Jung-hwan recorded Ryu Seoyeon's every move with CCTV cameras and audio. Rae-hwa says she's never heard of that before. Guan tells her there's a video file that records every moment Ryu Seoyeon spent at the family home, including audio. She realizes that he plans to steal those records to find out the truth. Guan confirms this and adds that she doesn't need to watch it herself. They can handle it and check it out. If it's too hard for her, they can find another way. Rae-hwa says there's no better way to get the truth than this. She thinks to herself that she can't spend her whole life stuck in the past. Rae-hwa says she's going with him. She doesn't care if it's dangerous, but she doesn't want him to go alone. Guan thinks to himself that it's risky for her to join him. Rae-hwa asks if he knows the layouts, but he explains that all the information is blocked and the people there are loyal to the chairman, so they can't be influenced. Rae-hwa says she has a rough idea of where the chairman keeps the records and begs him to take her along. Guan tells Rae-hwa they can't leave any fingerprints, so they need to wear gloves. He explains that he'll go over everything, and they'll get it done in an hour. Choi Jung has set up everything for the infiltration, and May will temporarily block all internal cameras and devices. Once they're inside, it won't take long to steal what they need. Robbing a mansion isn't that tough. Seongbuk-dong, with its high-end homes and foreign embassies, always has police and security companies around. Ironically, even with all the security, there are still many burglaries. It's probably because people living there are more worried about exposing their hidden assets than the value of the stolen items. So even if Chairman Lee Jung-hwan loses something, he won't report it to the authorities. Rae-hwa and Guan head over to the place. Guan jumps through the fence, opens the gate, and asks her what took her so long. Rae-hwa replies that she thought he'd drop a rope from the wall or something. Guan says there's no one in the house, and they walk in. Rae-hwa notices that nothing has changed in the past 10 years. The garden her mother used to tend is still the same. She spots the annex where her mom's studio was. She thinks to herself that she'd be okay, but seeing the annex makes her stomach churn. Guan holds her hands and tells her he's scared. Rae-hwa and Guan walk up to the door. She tells him that the code she knows is from 10 years ago, and when she tries it, it works. Guan asks what the code is. She says it's her mother's birthday. They go inside, and Rae-hwa says it feels like time stopped the moment she left. Everything is just as it was. They walk into a room and see a painting. Guan asks if it's Ryu Seoyeon's painting, noting that it's famous as her last work. Rae-hwa says yes, but something about it seems strange. Guan asks what's odd. Rae-hwa explains that everything in the house is just like it was 10 years ago, but this painting is different. Chairman Jung-hwan never hung paintings in the living room, and he didn't collect her mother's paintings. So, she wonders why this painting is here. Guan asks Rae-hwa if she's found anything. She says no. Guan explains that during their initial check, they didn't see anything unusual in the main house and doesn't think there are any hidden spaces. Rae-hwa says this means they need to check the annex. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she's been feeling uneasy for a while, but the closer they get to the annex, the more suffocating it feels. She starts to feel dizzy again. Guan tells her he'll go alone, but she insists that she needs to do it. She says she's not being stubborn, she needs to face everything herself, the trauma, the chairman, all of it. She needs to confront it directly. Guan warns her that if she passes out, he will drag her out of there. They both go inside and see a security door. Guan notes that it's quite recent and looks like it was recently replaced. He asks Rae-hwa if she wants to try opening it. She agrees and notices that the door seems to require a date. The first password she tries doesn't work, so she decides to use her mother's birthday. The door unlocks, because she was her mom's little flower. Gwon thinks to himself that only the data from the year Ryu Seoyeon died is missing. Rae-hwa sees a flash drive connected to a projector. When she touches it, she remembers her mother shouting at her when she wanted to quit painting. Her mother realized that the talent she wanted was in Rae-hwa's hands, so she committed suicide after people hated her last piece. Rae-hwa had begged her not to do it, but her mother said she had no reason to live anymore and ended her life. Rae-hwa starts hitting the projector. Gwon grabs her hands and tells her that he'll destroy the whole place if that's what she wants. Gwon starts shooting up the whole place. Rae-hwa thinks to herself about the garden where her mother used to imprison and raise her. It was cold but green, and it felt painfully warm with their care. She always wanted her mother to see her as a daughter. She wished her mother could see her struggles, even just once. Since she left the house, she's been looking for someone who can see the real her. Gwon tells her that she is the real one and has always been. Rae-hwa asks him not to divorce her after the contract ends. May tells them they need to get out of there, so they leave. They get into the car, and May says that after all the chaos, Gwon should have come out sooner. Gwon just says whatever and tells Rae-hwa that if she's feeling dizzy, she should rest. He says he'll carry her to bed when they get home. Gwon asks Rae-hwa if she's awake. She asks if he's going to divorce her. He responds, asking if that's the first thing she'll say when she wakes up. He gives her some food. She insists he answer her. He asks if she really wants the truth. She says yes. Gwon explains that he's messed up. He got stuck in a warehouse at 9 and rotted there for a month. The heat fried his brain, and now he can't feel emotions properly. The strongest feeling he has is the urge to kill someone. He can't stand not killing, which is why he joined Desert and took on missions in the Red Zone. Gwon says that even though he feels this way, he still wants to break Lee Young-won's fingers one by one and torture him. He wants to dig up Ryu Seoyeon from her grave and chop her up. He wants to cement Lee Sun-woo and Lee Se-on together and throw them into the sea off Incheon. But he knows that's not what Rae-hwa wants. He says he can't feel like a normal person anymore. It's impossible now. Rae-hwa says that if they stay together, maybe they could work through their issues. Gwon tells her no. If they stay married after the contract ends, Il-won will go after her. Besides, he's already made a deal with his dad to divorce her and join Il-won. Rae-hwa says he didn't tell her about this, and she doesn't want to break up. She believes there must be a way to handle Il-won. Gwon holds her and kisses her, then tells her they have to get divorced. She pushes him away. Rae-hwa thinks to herself that she's not a normal person either. They're both messed up in their own ways, but now she knows how to draw Gwon I-tae. Gwon is outside, thinking about the past. He remembers Seongbuk-dong, where a wall created some shade. That girl used to hang out there often. He walks up to her, and she says she doesn't have any money. Gwon thinks to himself that he never took anything from her, but every time they met, she'd talk about money. He tells her he'll give her a cigarette if she tells him her name. She takes the cigarette and says her name is Lee Rae-hwa. He tells her to take a drag from the cigarette. She says it feels strong. He asks if it doesn't feel better, and if not, she should forget about it. She then tells him to drink some iced chocolate. He asks if it's spoiled, and she says if it's spoiled, he shouldn't drink it. He drinks it and thinks to himself that it tastes good. Gwon gets a call from Chairman Lee Jung-hwan, who tells him that he won. Gwon asks what he wants. Jung-hwan says he has nothing specific in mind but should keep a low profile until Rae-hwa's exhibition is over. Jung-hwan agrees to do that. Gwon says he's busy right now and asks if he can call back later. Jung-hwan asks when would be a good time, and Gwon says the next day by lunchtime. Jung-hwan agrees. Gwon thinks to himself that they have the video now, so Lee Jung-hwan has lost his power. Whether they actually use it is another story. He just hopes there won't be more sad stories about Rae-hwa for people to gossip about. Gwon hears people talking about Rae-hwa's exhibition and thinks to himself that it's a huge success. A few weeks later, the exhibition finally starts. Since the talk about divorce, Gwon hasn't been able to face Rae-hwa properly. He left her security to the rest of desert. This is the first time he's seeing the finished pieces. Guan hears someone talking about the main piece of the exhibition and walks towards it. He thinks to himself that it was supposed to be a painting of him. He wonders if Rae-hwa really sees him as something so magnificent. He hears people murmuring about how stunning the painting is. Then, he hears reporters from the back. He turns and sees Rae-hwa talking to a lady. He wonders if it's Lene, the person who once offered a fortune to get Rae-hwa to Macao. Rae-hwa sees him and smiles. She's about to walk towards him when Lene holds her back. Guan starts looking for Rae-hwa. The GPS says she's at home. He calls Choi and tells him that Rae-hwa isn't home, asking if he was the last person to escort her. Choi says it's always May who took her, not him. The GPS shows she's in the penthouse. Guan tries to remember how Rae-hwa was the last time he saw her. He tells Choi to find out where Lene is. 1 hour before the exhibition starts, Lene goes to meet Rae-hwa. She greets her and compliments her Korean. Lene says her father is Korean and used to run a flower shop. Her mother fell in love with him and pursued him relentlessly. Rae-hwa says she understands. Lene says she's been meaning to ask Rae-hwa something. She asks if Rae-hwa was Ryu Seoyeon's proxy artist. Rae-hwa replies yes, and Lene says she knew it as soon as she saw the painting. She knew Rae-hwa is the real artist. Rae-hwa says she painted everything except her final piece. She's always been Ryu Seoyeon's proxy artist, and it wasn't really a secret. She was planning to reveal the truth when the time was right. Lene says she's been a long-time fan of Rae-hwa and would be happy to help in any way she can. Rae-hwa says she'll paint something for Lene in exchange if she can hide her for a while. Lene asks who she needs hiding from, and Rae-hwa says from Gwon I-tae. Lene says his name in Korea is Gwon I-tae. She used to know him as Tae and has heard of him. A close acquaintance of hers worked with him. He's a remarkable person. Many are shocked to learn he's Ilwon's illegitimate child, but very few know they're married. Lene asks if Rae-hwa is looking for a safe way to part ways. Rae-hwa says she doesn't plan on divorcing, but it's hard to explain. Lene says she doesn't need all the details, just that she needs a big painting in return. It won't be easy to keep Desert City away. May comments that the night air in Gangwon is really nice. Rae-hwa thanks her for helping her escape. May asks if Rae-hwa is sure about this decision. She's happy to help, but warns that Gwon I-tae can be dangerous when he's angry. Rae-hwa says she knows and will explain everything later. May says she doesn't know all the details, but it's exciting. She suggests they go inside. Gwon approaches the large building, his steps firm as he makes his way to the entrance. The men stationed outside watch him closely, but he walks right up to them and says he's there to see Lene. His voice is calm, but there's no hesitation. When they don't move, he asks again, telling them to step aside. The men exchange glances but eventually give way, letting Gwon walk through. Inside, the building is quiet, but tension lingers in the air. Lene sits at a table, her eyes studying him as he enters. She greets him casually, saying she's heard a lot about him, though this is their first meeting in person. Without waiting for him to respond, she suggests playing a game of mahjong while they talk. Gwon's eyes darken, and without warning, he kicks a chair, the sound of it scraping across the floor echoing in the room. "You're in Korea," he says sharply. "If we're going to talk, let's do it over a Korean game. How about Yut?" Before Lene can reply, the men surrounding her pull out their guns, aiming them at Gwon. He barely glances at them, his focus still on Lene. With a dry smirk, he says, "Look at these guys walking around with guns. They should be reported to the police and get a taste of prison food." Lene doesn't seem fazed. She tells him he's not in any position to make demands. Gwon shrugs, his voice steady as he replies, "My gun's for self-defense. Do you really think I'd walk in here unarmed with the kind of company you keep?" His tone shifts as he cuts straight to the point, asking her why she's been getting involved with other people's wives. Lene's expression hardens as she tells him to get his facts straight. She says Rae-hwa came to her first for help and questions why he's going to such lengths for someone who doesn't want him. Gwon feels a knot form in his chest as doubt creeps in. Could Rae-hwa have left on her own? He tells Lu-jin that if Rae-hwa truly doesn't want him, he'll leave, but first, he needs to see her face. Elsewhere, Rae-hwa stands by the window, her gaze fixed on the darkened streets below. She feels the cool breeze on her skin as she sees Guan step out of a car. She knew he'd find her eventually, but not this quickly. May enters the room quietly, her voice steady as she tells Rae-hwa that Guan is there. Rae-hwa doesn't turn around, simply nodding in acknowledgement. May asks if she should take care of it, offering to shoot Guan before he causes any trouble. Rae-hwa lets out a small sigh as Guan's voice rings out from below, shouting her name and telling her to come home with him. May waits for her decision, watching carefully. After a long pause, Rae-hwa finally speaks, saying that Guan came all this way, so she'll meet him and talk. But she warns that if he causes any trouble, she won't hesitate to shoot him herself. He looks around the room, unimpressed with the villa, and thinks it's hardly a fair trade for her paintings. He can't help but feel frustrated, blaming Lu-jin for making him do things he'd never imagined. He's not someone who likes being tied up, and is itching to be free. She reminds him of their deal, and how staying tied up was part of it. He tries to ease the tension by talking about her art, mentioning how beautiful the paintings were at the exhibition. She's curious about his opinion, and though he's not one for grand words, he admits it's the best art he's ever seen. Her face softens at his honesty, and he throws in that he's come up with a perfect compliment. When she moves closer to hear it, he surprises her with a quick kiss on the cheek, calling it his killer review. Shifting the conversation, he suggests they should leave together, but she immediately resists. Her decision to break up is firm, and when he questions how she plans to manage without him, she's confident she'll be fine. He tries to remind her of the danger she's still in, especially since their contract isn't over yet, but she's convinced that a divorce will solve her problems with Ilwon. He warns her about the risks, mentioning how Lee Jung-hwan is still a threat, but she's unbothered, thinking Lu-jin can handle it. If things really go south, she's already planned to escape to Macao, thinking she'll be safe there with May by her side. He can't believe what he's hearing and feels a surge of frustration. It makes no sense to him why she'd follow Lu-jin to a foreign place where she knows no one. May's presence doesn't reassure him, and he feels like he's losing control of the situation. He contemplates freeing himself right then and there, eliminating everyone standing in their way, and taking her with him. But what really bothers him is why she's making everything more complicated than it needs to be. Avoiding her problems won't help, and he tells her she should face them instead of running away. In the end, she looks at him with a calmness that makes him uneasy, asking him if he could live without her, turning the question back on him. She tells him if he can live without her, then they should go ahead and divorce. She'll move on, find someone else. But does he even understand how she feels every time he talks about divorcing her? She always thinks about what life would be like alone. He'll probably go back to that dangerous life, always fighting for survival, too busy to even think about her. But for her, no matter where she is or what she's doing, she'll think of him on the streets, at home, even his silly jokes will haunt her. Then she'll wonder, will he get hurt or die one day, and maybe months later, May will feel sorry for her and break the news. Every day she'll live with that fear, and that's why she wanted him to understand what it's like to be without her. She planned to disappear for a few days to make him feel it, but he found her in half a day. If he tracked her down that quickly, he should at least have an answer for her. What is this to him? But Gwon Hyun always had a way of getting involved in everything. He told his family he didn't want to marry Lee Se-on. Instead, he wanted to marry Daesan E&C's daughter, Lee Rae-hwa. He had found out she was adopted and not very close to her parents, which made her a perfect candidate for an engagement. His father asked if that was true, and he confirmed it, saying she always stopped under the wall after being beaten at home. His father called her a cast-off, but asked what would happen to Ms. Se-on. Gwon Hyun simply suggested pairing her with Gwon I-tae, since he carried the Ilwon name. He insisted that he wanted to be engaged to Lee Rae-hwa, adding that she was prettier anyway. I-tae wonders how Hyun even found out he was seeing her. What did she do to deserve this? The thought of it fills him with rage. Something he found beautiful and precious was now something others could want too. Anyone could try to take her, anyone could ruin her. Realizing this, he finds himself standing at Hyun's door. I-tae tells Hyun to stop bothering other people, that she has nothing to do with him. Hyun scoffs, asking how that's possible. Engaging her to him isn't bothering her, it's ridiculous to even think that. What's so bad about being engaged to the heir of Ilwon? Daesan is just a mid-sized construction company. I-tae snaps back, asking why someone who's dying even needs to get engaged. Hyun replies confidently that he'll get better if he gets married, and if not, there's always another option. Sacrificing blood to ward off evil, ultimately just for an organ transplant, what kind of miserable life is that? The chance to prove himself came sooner than expected. Hyun's condition had been really bad at the time, and if he had a seizure, he'd be in serious danger without treatment within a minute. I-tae had told Hyun that beepers and medicine wouldn't help him anymore. He explains that everything he did was in self-defense. He overheard plans for surgery to harvest his organs, and if he hadn't acted, he would be dead by now. After his brother passed away, everything went crazy. The chairman suddenly decides to make him the heir, and the madam completely loses her mind. He knows he's just a fake heir, he can't really be the real deal. To symbolize this, he even gets a snake tattoo, a reminder of his position. She mentions that she once read in a book that for a serpent to become a dragon, the person it meets during its rise is crucial. If that person calls it a snake, it stays a snake. But if they call it a dragon, then it becomes a dragon. She insists that he is the only dragon in Ilwon and warns him not to let snakes fool him because he is indeed the real deal. He goes on to say he has big plans. First, he intends to take down Daesan E&C, then he'll target DS Hotel, and finally, he will go after Ilwon, one by one. He acknowledges, though, that taking down Ilwon will take a lot of time, at least 10 years. He explains that it's not due to a lack of ability on his part, rather, it's because she refuses to grant him a divorce. This situation forces him to change his plans to keep her safe, which only complicates everything further. She then asks how far he's willing to go for her, genuinely curious about his commitment. He responds with a firm resolve, saying he is fully committed and will do whatever it takes. She teases him, asking if he needs her to kill someone for him if there's anyone he wants out of the way. However, he shakes his head and tells her no, he has already dealt with those problems himself and has the rest of his plans carefully laid out. He reassures her that they should leave now to discuss their next steps. Just then, Anan walks in to inform Chairman Lee Jung-hwan that the madam from Ilwon is present. As she steps into the room, she doesn't waste any time getting straight to the point. She knows he's probably curious about why she's there, so she dives right in, stating that she's aware of Gwon I-tae's plans to disrupt pre-palace in the new city. This is news to him, but he listens intently. She tells him that they share a common enemy in Gwon I-tae, making it clear that their interests align. He raises an eyebrow and asks if she wants to use his hand for her revenge. With a determined look in her eyes, she answers yes, and goes on to explain that she can provide him with vital inside information on pre-palace. In exchange, she asks him to kill Gwon I-tae for her. The atmosphere grows tense as he considers her proposal, weighing the implications of the alliance they are forming against the backdrop of their shared goals and the risks involved. It's been 2 days since Rae-hwa got back home, and Guan seems busier than usual. She wonders if she should call him, but then her phone rings with an unknown number. She answers it, and it turns out to be Chairman Lee Jung-hwan. He calls her name, and she asks why he's calling her. He replies that it's just a dad checking on his daughter. Rae-hwa rolls her eyes at the thought of him being a dad, and she thinks about all the things he's done to her. She wonders if he ever loved her like family or if he's just trying to make her quiet. He says that he really loved her, that she was the most perfect tenant left by her mother. He tells her he hasn't gone a single day without regretting what happened since her mother died and that he wishes he could turn back time. Rae-hwa listens, feeling a mix of emotions. She responds that she understands what he's saying, but it doesn't change anything. Chairman Lee then says he wants to meet her in person, and he mentions something about the will. Rae-hwa quickly interrupts, saying she doesn't need anything from him, not the inheritance, nothing at all. She tells him she doesn't want to be tied to him for the rest of her life. He insists this is the last time he'll ask her to meet, promising that after this, he won't bother her again. He claims he will step out of her life just as she wishes. This makes her curious, and she asks him if he plans to kill himself like her mom did. He calls her name, sounding shocked. Rae-hwa firmly tells him not to kill himself in front of her, explaining that if they both go that way, she would be really angry. She adds that she'll think about meeting him and keeping in touch, so he should wait for her. Then, she ends the call. As she hangs up, Rae-hwa thinks about how she's never really stood up to him before. She realizes that she sounded a lot like Gwon I-tae when she spoke. She wonders if Gwon I-tae is really that busy or if he just doesn't want to talk to her. An hour ago, Schmidt tells the team that Cha Minyoung just went to Daesan E&C. He says this isn't a good sign. She definitely went there to ask for something, and she wouldn't have gone empty-handed. She's probably making a deal about pre-palace, which worries everyone. Choi asks how Schmidt knows this. They all worked really hard to get that information, and he wonders who leaked it. He looks at May and asks if it was her. May tells him to cut her some slack and asks Guan what they should do now. She worries that if Lee Jung-hwan finds out about this, things won't go according to their plan. Guan asks what everyone thinks. He suggests they should strike first and blow the pre-palace issue wide open right now. Choi thinks it's such a waste to release the information at this time. He believes they should have built up to it more before making a big move. Guan replies that they don't have a choice. If they wait too long, it will all fall apart. May says she's on it, meaning she'll take action. Guan asks how things are going with Lu Jin. He wonders if she agreed to the 30 billion deal. Schmidt jumps in and says they managed to secure a promise for 60 billion instead. However, in return, Lu Jin wants to meet Rae-hwa every time she comes to Korea because she wants to get to know her better. May comments that Lu Jin must be a big fan of Rae-hwa. Guan then asks why Lu Jin is so obsessed with her. May says she's going to contact the media about the deal and asks Choi if he's coming with her. Choi agrees and says yes, he will go. May tells him she'll wrap up her work and get the funds sorted out by the end of the day. Guan promises to join Il-won in taking over Daesan, starting with the succession plan. He sets up a paper company to secure funds for his personal use. With the pre-palace case blowing up, he plans to buy Daesan stock using these funds and cash from Lu Jin. This way, they can get enough shares to dominate the shareholder meeting at DS Hotel and push Lee Jung-hwan out of Daesan management. Guan calls Kang Myok to let her know it's happening today. He tells her to be on standby and to buy the stock as soon as the price falls below their target. He asks if she has any questions. She says no, but she adds that he should spare DS Hotel and her family. He replies that it depends on whether her kids behave. He might consider it. However, he thinks to himself that he doesn't actually plan to spare them. In breaking news, a whistleblower reveals that the chairman is going to jail for violating the Serious Accidents Punishments Act. She knows that Guan is behind this, which means big trouble. She receives a call and answers it. She wonders if it's him calling her. The man on the line tells her she needs to come home right away. She calls him Mr. Park and reminds him that she already told him she won't see the chairman anymore. He replies that it's not about that. He tells her the chairman is critically ill, and she might need to prepare herself. He says he is undergoing emergency surgery but they discovered his condition too late. They don't know if he will make it. He also mentions that the chairman attempted to commit suicide at home. She thinks to herself if this is because of what she said to him. No, she realizes he must have acted impulsively because he felt cornered. Mr. Park tells her that he knows their relationship is strained, but she really should come. He says she must have things left unsaid. Given the situation, the chairman might end up in a vegetative state. He explains that the chairman left a written directive not to receive life support, but they need her consent as his family to stop the medical care. He urges her to consider helping him on his last journey and suggests she should think of it as her last duty as family. She thinks to herself that the chairman is worse than a stranger and has never treated her like family. Still, she decides to say that she will consent to stopping life support, but she makes it clear that she won't come to see him again. Mr. Park thanks her for her decision, and she says she'll be there shortly. She walks outside and asks the men standing there if they are the guards assigned to her. One of them replies yes, they are her bodyguards from Desert. She tells them she needs to go to Il-won General Hospital, so they should get ready. The bodyguard tries to protest, saying it's too dangerous. She acknowledges that she knows it's dangerous, but explains that something urgent has come up, and she has to go. He insists that it is too risky, but she firmly reminds him that they are there to protect her, not to imprison her. He understands and says he will prepare the car, but they must accompany her at all times. She agrees, saying they should keep her safe, and mentions that there is something else she needs. When they arrive outside the hospital, she says it's time to go in. Rae-hwa walks up to Mr. Park, remembering how cold he used to be toward her when she was younger. She feels like she's aged a lot since then. Mr. Park opens the door for her and tells the guards to wait outside, explaining that the family needs some private time. Once inside, he locks the door, and Rae-hwa questions his actions. Turning to Chairman Lee Jung-hwan, she makes it clear that he has crossed a line. Despite her attempts to distance herself from him, she can't believe he would lie about someone's life. Mr. Park tells her that everything she has comes from her mother, Ryu Se-oyen. He explains that her talent in art was inherited and cultivated by her mother, who guided her every step of the way. He insists that no matter how much she denies it, she is merely a remnant of her mother, and it's unfortunate that she can't accept that, even at the risk of dishonouring her memory. Rae-hwa, filled with anger, retorts that he should have been clearer about this earlier. She declares that he should have ended her life instead of just injuring her. Furious, she pulls out a gun, confronting him directly. She asserts that she won't just sit and cry forever. When he questions where she learned this behavior, she reveals that her husband taught her. She maintains that regardless of his justifications, she is the one who painted the pictures, realizing now that her mother has only been using her. She demands that he stop tormenting her, making it clear that he underestimates her resolve. Mr. Park challenges her by questioning if she managed to reach her husband on the way there, hinting that Guan isn't as invincible as she thinks. Rae-hwa asks what he has done to Guan, and Mr. Park coldly responds that her husband is likely dead. In disbelief, she shouts in shock and pulls the trigger, shooting him. Mr. Park then instructs his men to deal with her, revealing a syringe and telling her to remain calm as he prepares to put her down. Guan steps on the man's neck, telling Rae-hwa to snap out of it. The chairman calls for the security team, saying there's an intruder in the VIP room. Guan turns to May and tells her to get a medical team ready by the car right away. May replies that they're still on the site, but Guan insists that Rae-hwa is about to die. Just then, she wakes up and asks how he got there. He checks if she is okay, and she assures him that she's fine and that he didn't manage to inject her. Guan expresses his fear, saying he almost watched her die right in front of him. He tells her that if he dies from a heart attack, it's her fault. He reveals that he hasn't cried once since he was kidnapped as a kid and begged for his life. Now, he admits he likes her and can't live without her. Rae-hwa urges him to say it again, but he refuses. She insists that he should look into her eyes and say it, but he still says no. Then, she tells him to kiss her, and they share a kiss. After the kiss, Guan tells her she's in big trouble now. Rae-hwa asks why that is. He replies that he's never letting her go. If she wants to break up, she'll have to kill him first because he can't bring himself to break up with her. Rae-hwa responds that there's no way she would do that. Guan reminds her that they already decided they would die together. Rae-hwa tells Guan that he should tell her he loves her again. He replies that he just said it, but then he says it again, adding that she shouldn't make him say those kinds of things. Rae-hwa smiles and tells him that she knows and that she loves him too. Guan, feeling playful, asks if they should get married. He suggests that if she wants a big wedding, they can broadcast it live for everyone to see. If she prefers something small, they can just invite their crew from the desert. He mentions it casually, saying they can decide later if they want to or not. Rae-hwa agrees to getting married, and Guan carries her over to the bed. He asks her if they should think about having a baby. He explains that if they have a child, it will bind them together forever and give them something special to protect so they never split up. Rae-hwa wonders if she can really do it, but she wants to try. She believes that if she's with him, she can take care of a baby. They share a kiss, and the moment turns more intimate as they connect deeply with each other. After their intimate moment, Rae-hwa looks at Guan with curiosity and asks what he's doing. He casually replies that he's not doing anything at all, just enjoying the moment. She chuckles, teasing him about how he's not a kid anymore. Guan smiles back, feeling warmth radiate from her. Rae-hwa notes how warm he is and wonders about the situation with the chairman. Guan takes a deep breath and tells her that the chairman is still breathing, but he adds that he can handle him whenever he needs to. Rae-hwa shifts her focus and brings up the video of S2-e1. She says they should stick to the original plan and go ahead and release it. Guan raises an eyebrow and warns her that once they release it, everyone will see how much she has suffered. He points out that they'll see her crying, and the gossip will spread like wildfire, with people talking about it for ages. Rae-hwa nods, understanding his concern, but reassures him that it's okay. She explains that she wants her mother to lose her value, so she can finally start working on her next steps. Guan, always supportive, tells her that he will do whatever she wants. Feeling a mix of determination and nostalgia, Rae-hwa expresses her desire to watch all the videos now. She believes that watching them might help jog some more memories and bring back details that she might have forgotten. Guan watches her closely, admiring her strength and resolve. Meanwhile, Guan starts pondering about the world around him. He wonders aloud if the world has really become an easy place, reflecting on the challenges they've faced. Mr. Park, who has been listening, asks if he can have a cigarette. Guan quickly reminds him that he quit smoking a while ago, lifting a lollipop as an alternative. He explains that secondhand smoke is not good for anyone, especially for someone who's trying to have a baby. Guan mentions that Mr. Park has been locked up for 10 days and suggests he should think carefully about his choices. Mr. Park nods but then says that while it might be tough for Guan to kill Lee Jung-hwan, it would be easy for him to kill Park instead. He then makes a surprising observation, noting that Guan resembles the chairman closely, even stating that they are identical in many ways. Guan agrees, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice, saying that Lee Jung-hwan is obsessed with both S2-e1 and Lee Rae-hwa. Mr. Park leans in slightly, his tone turning serious as he comments that when two lunatics clash, the crazier one always comes out on top. Guan contemplates this, realizing the weight of those words as they both reflect on their complex situation and the unpredictable nature of the people involved. In that moment, both men understand that the stakes are high, and the path ahead is fraught with uncertainty, but Guan feels more determined than ever to protect Rae-hwa and to ensure that their plan moves forward. Guan sits in the room, his expression serious as he looks at Mr. Park. He starts talking about Lee Jung-hwan, saying he has seen him up close and knows him very well. Guan emphasizes that he is willing to do whatever it takes to deal with Lee Jung-hwan, no matter the cost. He adds that he believes Lee Jung-hwan is even worse than the chairman. Mr. Park raises an eyebrow, curious about what Guan really wants. Guan thinks for a moment and then says that at first, he wanted to chop Lee Jung-hwan into pieces while he was still alive. But then, a different idea comes to him. He smiles slightly and explains that it might be even better to keep Lee Jung-hwan alive and lock him up for life. He believes that would be worse for Lee Jung-hwan because living in a cage, knowing he can't escape, would be a special kind of torture. Guan suggests that if Lee Jung-hwan were to report all the insider information about the construction materials scandal, maybe he could walk away from this mess without any serious consequences. It's a way to save himself while also ruining Lee Jung-hwan. Meanwhile, Rae-hwa is sitting quietly, looking at a card in her hands. She thinks to herself about the connection she has just made. Cha Min-young is the chairman of the foundation that owns Il-won Hospital. It all clicks into place, and she remembers asking Guan about this last night. In her mind, she goes back to their conversation from the night before. She had asked Guan how he knew she was in the chairman's hospital room. Guan had leaned back in his chair and explained that he was at the hospital too. He shared a shocking story about how he made a deal with an old man who was offering his organs for a transplant. It was a desperate situation, and Guan had thought he could take advantage of it. But then, just as things were getting serious, they dragged him into the operating room and announced that the transplant needed to happen immediately. Rae-hwa listens, captivated, as Guan continues. He says that he even prepared a plan to switch places with a double agent, someone who could take his place while he made his escape. But as soon as the offer was accepted, his bodyguards rushed in to stop everything. Guan shakes his head, noting how they were so obsessed that they had prepared the operating room beforehand. It was almost like they knew he was planning something and wanted to ensure they were ready. As she processes all this information, Rae-hwa suddenly feels a wave of concern wash over her. She looks at Guan with worry and asks if he is hurt. He gives her a reassuring smile and says that he is fine. If he weren't, he wouldn't have been able to find her, he explains. He shares that Mei and Choi helped him clear the way, working together to ensure he could get through safely. They even tipped him off about Lee Jung-won's location, telling him that he had gone to the chairman's room. Guan leans in closer, his tone serious as he tells Rae-hwa that Lee Jung-hwan is going to get what's coming to him very soon. There's a fire in his eyes, and Rae-hwa can see that Guan is determined. She feels a mix of fear and excitement at the thought of everything that is about to unfold. They both know that the stakes are high, and the game they are playing could change everything for them. Guan takes a deep breath, his mind racing with plans and possibilities, knowing that soon, they will confront the chaos that lies ahead. Lee Jung-hwan is sitting in his prison cell, facing a harsh reality. He receives a prison sentence of 35 years, and it hits him hard. The testimony from people involved at the scene plays a part in his conviction, but what really seals his fate is a high-ranking executive from Daesan E&C who turns whistleblower. This executive, along with several others, reveals major corruption within the company. Now, Lee Jung-hwan has no choice but to accept this heavy sentence. He has dedicated his entire life to Daesan, and now he has to watch everything he built crumble. The management rights of the company he loved are being handed over to someone he has never even met. Knowing the chairman as he does, this reality feels like a living hell for him. Meanwhile, Guan is out and hears two guys chatting about Rae-hwa's upcoming exhibition. One guy mentions that there wasn't a protest the last time, referring to her as Ryu Seoyeon's knockoff. The other guy agrees, saying that the negative comments disappeared once the exhibition opened, and now people are calling her a rising star. They wonder if they can buy tickets for her show, but the first guy points out that it's not that simple. Just because they want to see her doesn't mean they can easily buy tickets. Rae-hwa has become the talk of the town. People used to gossip that she inherited Ryu Seoyeon's looks and family background, but things changed when trouble hit Daesan. The gossip about her becomes even more intense. Whether the talk is good or bad, it only draws more attention to her exhibition. After the exhibition ends successfully, everyone starts waiting eagerly for her next media appearance. However, Rae-hwa remains completely out of the public eye. Later, Guan checks in on Rae-hwa to see if she's awake. When he walks into the room, he has some food with him. She looks at him and asks what's going on, surprised to see him with food. Guan smiles and tells her that it's something he made just for her. He explains that she had paparazzi tailing her, and Rae-hwa's eyes widen in surprise. She asks if that's true, and Guan nods, saying yes. He dealt with them, but it seems that the reporters figured out she's staying in the building. They are crowding around the front entrance, hoping to get a shot of her. Guan is frustrated and says they are angry that she's hiding from the media, and he almost felt like shooting them just to make them go away. Rae-hwa tells him to calm down, knowing that he cares about her but also realizing that getting angry won't help the situation. Rae-hwa turns to Guan and says that when the truth about her parents finally comes out, they will need those reporters to cover it properly. She doesn't want to go out and face the media herself, so she thinks maybe she can send a gift to them as a polite way to ask them to leave. She wonders if that would work and hopes it does. Guan, standing behind her, wraps his arms around her, feeling a sense of comfort from her presence. He smiles and reminds her that when he first met her, she used to freak out at the mere mention of Lee Jung-won's name. But now, she seems so much stronger, not even flinching when he talks about him. Rae-hwa playfully warns Guan not to make her flinch with something else. Guan laughs and assures her that he won't, then suddenly sweeps her up in his arms and carries her over to the bed. She giggles, reminding him that it's the middle of the day and they should be careful. He shrugs with a playful grin, saying he never cared about that sort of thing. Hearing that, she laughs even more, feeling a warmth spread through her at their playful banter. As Guan holds her, he gazes at her and thinks about the smile he has longed to see every day. Every morning, he wakes up and runs, hoping to catch a glimpse of her face in the alley. He remembers the day Hyun died vividly. After suffering a brutal beating from the madam, he felt the urge to run to the alley where Rae-hwa was, desperately seeking comfort. He recalls how he couldn't see her most days. Just because he ran didn't mean he would find her. But that day, destiny seemed to guide him, bringing her to him. When Rae-hwa notices the bruises on his arms and the hurt in his eyes, concern washes over her. She asks him what happened, her voice filled with worry. Guan tries to brush it off, saying it's nothing serious, but she isn't convinced. She stares at him, eyes wide, insisting that it doesn't look like nothing at all. Then, unexpectedly, tears start to fill her eyes. "Why are you crying?" Guan asks, his heart aching at the sight of her tears. Rae-hwa takes a shaky breath and admits there is someone she really doesn't like. Guan, feeling a mix of anger and protectiveness, asks if it's the same person who hits her every time. Rae-hwa nods, and in that moment, Guan's heart sinks. He thinks to himself that this person must be a part of her family, just as his own family has caused him pain. Guan feels a surge of determination and tells her, "I'll kill them for you." In his mind, he remembers that he already killed Hyun once. He thinks to himself, if he could do it once, why not do it again? But instead of Rae-hwa smiling at his words, she just cries harder. He can't understand why his words don't bring her comfort. She looks at him with tears streaming down her cheeks and says, "Please, just meet me tomorrow." Curious, Guan asks for her number, wanting to keep in touch with her. But Rae-hwa shakes her head sadly, explaining that she doesn't have a phone. She looks him in the eye, serious and sincere, and says they should meet at the same time tomorrow. Guan agrees, feeling hopeful. However, when the next day comes, Rae-hwa doesn't show up. Guan waits anxiously in the alley, glancing at his watch repeatedly, but as the minutes turn into hours, a sense of dread washes over him. He wonders where she could be, why she hasn't come. His heart races with worry. Later, Guan hears the terrible news. He finds out that it was the day Rae-hwa's mother took her own life. The weight of the information hits him hard, and he feels like the ground has been pulled out from under him. Rae-hwa never comes back to the alley after that, and Guan realizes with a heavy heart that he has lost her forever. The memories of their brief moments together haunt him, and he can't shake the feeling that he was too late to save her, too late to be the person she needed in her life. Guan flees overseas, wanting to escape his father's high expectations. He ends up in a desert, living in constant danger and uncertainty every day. It's a tough life, but even in those moments when he feels like he is close to death, Rae-hwa's face keeps popping into his mind. He thinks to himself that he can't die just yet. For a long time, he believed he wouldn't care if he died, but now, on the edge of death, he realizes he has a reason to live again. The reason is simple. He wants to see Rae-hwa again. Determined to find her, Guan reaches out to May for help. He learns that Rae-hwa is looking for a bodyguard in Korea, and he sees this as his chance. Through May, he shares some information that will make it easy for Rae-hwa to choose him. He pretends that he is visiting Korea because he needs money and acts like he's seeing Rae-hwa for the first time. It's a clever plan, and it works. When Guan finally reunites with her, he feels a sense of relief wash over him. He is no longer the helpless person he was back then, now he is capable and strong. He thinks about how he can finally reclaim what is his, just as she is his. This time, he has the power to protect her, and that gives him hope and purpose. Being close to her again fills him with a warmth he hasn't felt in a long time, and he knows he will do whatever it takes to keep her safe. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a Season 2 Part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, ciao.